Hey guys, it's Christina. This is Vox and Guest, and I am joined today by Aubrey Britt Bailey, who is the frontman, mastermind of the Wormwood Project. How you doing, Aubrey? Say hello to the lovely people at home.
Hi, it's very kind of you. Uh, I'm one of many masterminds in the band, but yeah, I'll take credit for that one.
Sure,
Yeah,
yeah, I said it, so you don't have
we'll
to.
roll with it.
Nobody can yell at you because I'm the one that
No,
said
that's
it. So
cool. It's very kind of
Aubrey
you.
Aubrey is here representing the band. We will mention everybody in a minute, but
Yeah,
Aubrey, this show, we're heavy hitters here.
I
We
like
don't
it.
fuck around. We start right away with just intensity and
What I
and
want.
soul searching and whatever. So
I like it.
I'm going to ask you a major question right now.
All
We're
right.
starting off hot. You ready for
Okay.
it?
Coming
Okay.
in hot.
All right.
Do it.
So what is the correct way to put toothpaste on the toothbrush? Do you wet the brush and then apply the toothpaste, or do you apply
Mhm.
the toothpaste and then wet the brush? And I want you to think carefully about this because your fandom might be at stake.
Now, here's the thing. So I didn't know there was a correct way to do this, and I had done it incorrectly where the fucking toothpaste always fell off. At that point, I was like, you know what? Just brushing your teeth, good for you. I didn't need an order, but then I saw that if you wet it after, or you wet it first, and then you put the toothpaste on there.
It
That's what I'm
stays on
hearing.
better?
Yeah, I think so.
Really?
I
Okay.
think
It's
so.
funny. That's what I do, but I never made it like a moral judgment or anything. But I didn't realize there was actually a mechanical advantage. So if you put it on the toothbrush dry, or are you just washing it off when you wet the
I think
The
so.
toothpaste?
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
Look at this. Aubrey dropping straight knowledge.
That's
You came
true.
at that with a lot of confidence and
Right. See, I've
research
been
behind you.
watching the show,
Oh,
so I have tried my best to get your like frame of reference question. So I was waiting for this.
all
So
right. You've
I've
been
done some homework.
researching things like
Yeah,
is cereal soup and who would win a street fight, a taco, or yeah, okay.
right.
So this is what this show is doing to people in their free time. That's really good.
No, that's good. People could have worse problems, you
It's
know.
true. And many do. And so I think we'll be talking about that a little bit today. But okay, Aubrey,
Yeah,
I people who have watched our lives and stuff, in addition to the show, know that about as we were just saying before we started the show tonight, probably about a month ago, I think you had connected with us on Instagram and just
yeah,
been like, hey, here's what we just put out, in the promotion thing that everybody does when they have a new release out. And
yeah.
we get a lot of those. We get a lot of those, which is great. I love it because it's another way for me to just, meet more indie musicians and find really good music. And so, we just put it on because I forget we were doing the dishes or prepping for something I forget. And we
Nice.
just kind of looked at each other and we were like, whoa, okay, this is really good. And then
Awesome.
I started reading the story
Yeah.
behind the album and the project, which we'll get to in a little bit.
Mhm.
And between the music and the story, I was hooked. So I am very happy to
Thanks.
have you on this show because I think people are going to want to hear the story. People are definitely going to want to hear the music if they haven't already. But I know we're going to have a big conversation, you and I just have a feeling. But let's
Yeah.
start simple. Okay.
Okay.
So,
That's
first of
good.
all, we should mention that while Aubrey is here alone, he is
Mhm.
not alone in the Wormwood Project. He
I
has
am not
three stalwart, incredibly talented bandmates. So we
fucking
should just talk
awesome.
about Brandon a bit, who's guitars and backing vocals, right?
Yeah. So Brandon Lee Gaines is the other creative counterpoint to me, and
Mhm.
now I don't know.
He's your Lennon or your
Yeah,
McCartney or your
it
yeah.
is fucking that, right? So I
Yeah.
don't know if, like in your band or in your musical career, I'm sure you've worked with a lot of musicians, and sometimes
Yeah.
it jives and sometimes it
Oh
doesn't.
yeah.
It's like relationships, it's that, like, I would never date that person, fuck that shit. No.
That's right. That's right.
But I had met Brandon in high school, and we'd always had the same creative vision to the point where I could not talk to him for 5 years and he'll have an idea, and it's probably something that I've scribbled in my
Wow.
notebooks, my like anxiety notebooks, something.
Very cool.
And so it's always like, yeah, just go for that. Like, it's not that I'm not interested, it's that I couldn't have done that better. So that's my, my Lennon McCartney.
Okay.
And I
Okay.
can't write with anybody else. It just does not turn out
Hmm.
that way. Um,
Well,
so
and,
yeah,
and why would you at this point? I mean, you guys have been together for a long time and you have that Vulcan mind meld thing going. So, I
yeah,
mean, if it ain't broke, don't fix it,
yeah,
right? So
man. It's working out for us.
I would
So
say so. And
yeah,
then you've got Jaco on the bass.
Yako,
Yako, okay,
yeah,
better.
man, Yako Kylie. Yeah, Yako is awesome. And everyone we all hung around in groups with each other, and Yako was this just insane kind of John Entwistle, Robert DeLeo kind of bass player. And you're like, holy fuck, you're so good. Like,
Yeah.
and this kid, like when he was starting out learning, he learned every one of Geezer Butler's bass Sabbath and just note for
Holy shit.
note, and like
Okay.
he's just insanely creative good, where even like my wife will say like she likes listening to Yako because he plays so many notes, like he always hits the fucking right one, like by the time it goes around you're like, that works.
He's
But
hit
yeah,
all of them, including the right one, and that's really what. Yeah, I mean
yeah, man,
the the bass is definitely a key point of the music there. And then speaking of key points, Anton on the drums, just that dude
Anton
is a
Shields,
beast, an
dude,
absolute beast. I mean, as a drummer's wife, I've come to listen to the drums more than I used to over the years. And man, oh
yeah,
man, he's just. I mean, all of you, and
we
it's a
appreciate
big
it,
part
man.
of why the sound is so good that you're all top of your game. But man, I mean, the drumming there is just top notch. So, and he
And
also seems like a hilarious guy. Like all the
Anton,
lives I've seen and everything, he's always very funny.
yeah, oh God, yeah, yeah. Anton got me my very first gig when I was a drummer. Um,
Oh, I didn't know you were
and
a
I
drummer.
got to open up. Yeah, I my very first instrument was drums. I started out. I taught myself when I was 4,
Okay,
and my mom got
so
me
late bloomer then,
late
Aubrey.
bloomer in the game. And you can't teach an old dog new
Yeah,
shit,
I mean, by then, I think Sean Thunderfoot
And-
Wells had already gotten a
right?
year on you. You were
You're
just
on it.
slacking. Yeah, but all right, fine.
Yeah,
Well, you got to
yeah,
it eventually. So, okay, so you were 4, you taught
yeah.
yourself the
I
drum.
had taught myself drums, and my very first band was just in, just high school kids or middle school kids, I guess, or
Mm.
well, high school for them. I was in a whole nother school, but that was my thing. And like John Bonham and Keith Moon and Dave Grohl. Dave Grohl was my idol.
Sure.
It still is. Like I have the John Bonham Dave Grohl tattoo because why not?
Yeah.
But Anton had got us our very first gig. I had to be like maybe 13, something like that. We had opened up for his band at like a coffee house, and it was like
Oh, wow.
here in Gainesville, there was nowhere to play. There was
Mm.
just absolutely nowhere. And Anton has always played in like 5 or 6 bands. He has just been the man that is just cool.
He
And
knows everybody and
yeah, so he Anton and Yako were both late additions to the band,
right.
and they um to find a team that like play together, it's great, man, because when you get Yako in that, like there's a part on Broken and the Damned, I believe, in the middle, it's like this bass drum thing.
Right before the
And
bridge, right? And the
yeah,
yeah,
and
yeah,
what was cool was like I guess Anton didn't tell anybody when we recorded it because we did all of this ourselves.
right.
Every note of it we
Yep,
did ourselves.
yep.
And so when Anton had his drums over, there's that break, and it's just this really like thought out, like Danny Carey from Tool drum thing. And then I'm like, okay, that's bad as shit. Okay, but now we're gonna have to play that live every time.
Right.
And then Yako goes to record his bass, and he's like, what the fuck is this? Like, because he knows he has to play over it.
Every time.
And
Yeah.
if you listen to what he's doing and you don't really pay attention to the drum rhythm, Yako is playing the rhythmically exactly what Anton is playing note wise. And it's crazy thought out. So he did that on a whim, and I think we did that whole thing, the bass part, in maybe a couple hours or so.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So you've got a dream team, which,
Yeah.
I'm sorry that they can't all be here, but I know you will, you'll be
Yeah.
bringing them in to talk about them. And talking about people who are not around is sort of a skill of yours, unfortunately,
Yeah.
which we'll be getting into too. But
Right.
so okay, so you touched a bit on it. What was going to be my next question is, how you got into music in the first place. So I'm assuming if you taught yourself drums, they were just around. Did you grow up in a musical family, or did you just like steal somebody's drum kit, or how did you have access to drums at 4?
My mom got me my very first drum kit, and she wanted it to be a real drum kit. And I'm not sure. I think she might have just heard me tapping around on something. My mom really loved music. So music was always playing in the house.
Yeah.
My mom, their side of the family, not musical whatsoever at all. Like, my mom appreciated it. I guess because she was the black sheep, she was the rebel of the family. So she got the very first, Hendrix album on vinyl. That was the thing she bought with her money, But my dad's side was musical, but they were all self-taught. But I didn't really have, my dad kind of walked out about 9. So I think I just started teaching myself stuff. So I didn't have anybody to run to, and we didn't have the internet. And, so it was like, put on your favorite album and mimic those people, or try to figure out how to get those sounds at 4 or 5 or however long, learning how to play piano just by ear. But if you put music in front of me, it's Spanish, man. I can't read it for shit. But if it's within my skill set, I could play it back to you.
Yeah. No, but I mean, and a lot of musicians that I've known in my life, and a lot of the musicians that I talk to on this show say the same thing. They're like, I don't read music, I don't write music, I just do everything by ear. And who cares? Who cares? If you know music theory, that's wonderful. If you're Chris from Bone Locker and that's just something that's in your wheelhouse, fantastic. It's going to serve you very well. Doesn't mean if you don't know it, you can't do very well by yourself. Music
it's super intriguing, and I guess I used to hate on it when I was a younger musician, and now it's like I find it fascinating how these things fit together and what makes what work.
Yeah.
Or or listening to famous recordings and figuring out like, this is why it sounds that way. It's because it's this scale or whatever.
Right.
So I've been gaining knowledge that way.
I think that's, I know there were things that I was taught in school that I wasn't ready or motivated to learn, and so they didn't land with me. And then much later in life, I'd be like, oh, now I'm curious. Now I want to know why this is this way. And then all of a sudden, once it matters to you and it's salient in some way, you can pick it up really quickly. And I think, you have such a good ear that I think music theory will probably continue to interest you because it will explain to you what you've been doing instinctively. And then you maybe can do it even more intentionally,
Yeah, that's part of the fascination. Like, just relearning. I've had to relearn everything, but so this is one of those new things. So that, it keeps my brain busy, and
that's a good thing. Because it's going to stay busy one way or the other. So we want to feed it good things to stay busy with still. So I wanted to ask you about the name of the band, the Wormwood Project. So how did you come up with that?
Okay, so we used to just give a ton of bullshit answers. So I could have told you that we had got the name from, it was the name of the parents in Matilda.
Okay.
Wormwood. They were the Wormwoods.
Okay.
It was Calvin and Hobbes' teacher.
Okay.
Something from the Bible.
Right.
Or absinthe. It was pretty much absinthe. It was absinthe. Yeah. Okay. So wormwood was an ingredient in absinthe.
Okay.
Also, my Brandon, he had a dream one night that actually involved wormwood.
Really?
Um, and yeah, so we're like, all right, let's kind of roll with that.
Yeah.
And at the time, there was a rumor that Trent Reznor and Maynard from Tool had started a side project called the Tapeworm Project.
Oh, wow.
So they had done one song, and I believe it actually turned out on a Pussifer album called Potions, where Trent Reznor does it. And
Look that up.
so I was like, we'll keep, there's like a million bands called Wormwood. So I'm like, let's just throw the project
The
on it.
project on it. Okay.
And then in Spotify, Anton drops so now we're Wormwood Project. So
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. Okay. Whether you meant to or not, it was dropped.
it
So now
is
you're
what it
Wormwood
is
Project.
now. Yeah.
So okay. So I mean, you know, I do like to frame for people, the music a little bit, and then I want to play one of the songs because you just dropped the album. Well, not just. It was back in what, April, Ghosts.
Yeah. Wow.
And it probably feels like much longer ago
Yeah,
than
it
that now.
does.
But I mean, you know, so we'll play the song and then people can hear it for themselves. But I will mention, as is the case with some musicians on this
Mhm.
show, what we play you in a minute is very much Wormwood Project, but it is not all of Wormwood Project. So you're going to get one flavor from this song that we're going to play for you. But I I I always like to try to place the band in a little bit, if there is a way to do so, a genre. And I know you've described your music as like heavy, bluesy, witchy grunge. And I thought to
Yeah,
myself, there's really no better way that I'm gonna describe that than what Aubrey said. So I'm just gonna go with that. But
yeah,
I love that you somewhere, maybe it was Spotify, I read that you said something like imagine a grunge band fronted by like a Southern Gothic or something like that. And I was like, okay,
right.
that all works. So, I mean, it's I'll ask you if there's anything quickly that you want to
Mhm.
say about, we're going to play the Broken and the Damned, but I think we let the music mainly speak for itself because
Yeah.
this was the song that I heard first. It's the first song on
Okay.
the album.
Cool.
And is there anything quickly before we come back, having listened to it, that you wanted to mention about it, or anything like that? I mean, obviously, we're going to get into the album and the themes in a minute, but anything specific you want us to know before we roll this?
Nothing specific at the beginning. We'll just go into it.
Okay. All right. So, guys, sit back, enjoy this one. This is The Broken and the Damned by Wormwood Project. So this song came on again, as I said, you know,
Right.
we were just sitting around, we saw your Insta message come in, and Greg runs the Instagram account. And so, you know, I don't always see what comes in on there. He'll bring me things that he's like, you
Right.
know, oh, you know. And this song came on, and I'm like, okay, you know, I'm hearing a little bit of Stone Temple Pilots in the vocals on this. I'm hearing
Thanks.
definitely a lot of hard grunge. I'm hearing, you know, tempo changes and these really intricate rhythms. And, you know, we talked about it a little bit, you know, that drum solo, if you want to call it that, at the bridge, and just everything that
Right.
Anton and Yako are doing together there. And, you know, there's all this distortion, and the guitar is kind of faded back for the solo, and there's so much going on. Everything kind of slows down, and then boom, it comes back. Big drums, you know, back to the quick tempo, the harmonies come in at the end. And there was just so much ear candy, like so much of it. And I was
Yeah.
like, okay. And as I say a lot on this show, being a singer, you know, and a vague kind of songwriter, I always listen for lyrics and vocals and melody first. And the lyrics are, as they are throughout the album, really poignant, meaningful, touching, compelling. And
Thanks.
that was when I got the backstory of the project, which I feel like we really can't move forward in this conversation until we talk about it. So, you know, when you sent the message, it was very simple. You know, your messages are very straight to the point, which is lovely, because then
You're busy people.
read them. Well, I appreciate it. I like the long
Everybody's
messages
got
too,
cats
but
they need to
it
be at
definitely,
home
yeah, it
fed.
helps a lot. It helps a lot. But so, you know, you sent this message and you were like, listen, you know, my name's Aubrey. I'm in a band called Wormwood Project. I'm paraphrasing, obviously. And you said, you know, and we just released this album called Ghosts. And, you know, it's an album about my recovery. And I'm going to let you talk about the album and the meaning. But I was so touched by the passion project that you've put together, and by this idea that we're going to talk about now.
Yeah.
And so before we go any further, let's let the people who don't already know in on what Ghosts is about and why you've done this album in the first place.
So it's going to be a weird jumping off point. I was a terrible high functioning alcoholic. And I drank every day for 13 years without a day off.
Wow.
Wormwood Project was originally a band with a completely different rhythm section. We had a brother, a group of brothers, Matt and Wes Kalberg, and we had gotten a good bit of, like, you know, your local notoriety, small town notoriety, and it's
you
cool.
were young. You were young.
Yeah, we were young as shit. And we lost our drummer like right at the height of it to mental illness. We lost him to suicide. So I got way fucking worse. Like I had already been drinking because it's acceptable on a fucking rock band,
right?
You know, and it's cool when you're in your 20s and shit, and you don't know any better, or maybe you do know better. But you're young and you have this band and everything's clicking and you want to set the world on fire and it's and shit's cool, and this happens. And you're young, you have no idea what to do. Chances are you might not have dealt with this situation before in your life, but it doesn't get any easier losing someone like that.
No.
So I just kind of went downhill. I don't really remember too much. I know we had tried to have, I think Brandon's uncle had played drums for us. He had learned like all of our songs, and we had to finish. We were doing this Emergenza. It's like an international battle of the bands.
Okay.
And it's just people from everywhere that get into it. So it was right at the final round of that. So he had to come in and like learn all these songs, and and do all this. And
So you were in the middle of that competition when you lost Wes?
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah, and that was a rough, and that was like, being a drummer before this, and taking a lot of time to look for a drummer and finding somebody you mesh with to come up with this new music. That was a big deal.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and yeah, this is really the first time I've ever talked about him, not because it wasn't a matter of importance. It's because, for all those years afterwards, that was pretty much part of what consumed me,
Right.
was a part of the downfall. It's not that I didn't think about it or it wasn't important, it's that I
No,
didn't
of course.
stop,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we had lost him. Alcoholism got super bad, excuse me. And you burn through a lot of relationships and family stuff, and you don't see it when it's happening, like how shitty you're getting and you're losing people around you, and
Mm-hmm.
still it's nothing because now you're a full-blown alcoholic.
Right.
And then you continue to watch this shit. Brandon had called me about 2 weeks before I got sober, and he was like, "Hey man, putting the band back together." And I was like, right? And like, I'm full blown at this point alcohol withdrawals, the shaking, because I've been trying to like teeter the shit down, because I don't know how this works.
Right. You knew you probably shouldn't stop cold turkey, so you were tapering and that kind
Yeah,
of thing.
and
Okay.
even then, I didn't realize how severe that the cold turkey thing was. I mean,
Mm.
Jesus, they don't put that on the bottle. If they put that shit on the bottle, like,
Yeah.
hey, this is what happens if
Yeah.
you drink every day for 13 years.
Oh yeah.
So, we go through this, but Brandon calls me and he's like, I'm putting the band back together. I'm like, bitching. He's like, do you have any songs? And I lied through my fucking teeth, and I was like, I got a lot of shit.
Okay. You're like, I
See
got a
you in
lot
a couple of weeks.
So just to back up there, so you lost Wes,
Yeah.
and then you finished this competition.
Right.
And at what point there did the band break up? Was it immediately after that? Was it kind of a hiatus that led to a breakup?
I think it was more of a hiatus that led to a breakup. That's when things start to get real fuzzy to me. So,
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure the other band members probably don't. I'm sure Brandon has a good idea. We had
But so for some period of years then, there
right,
had
yeah.
been no band. Okay.
Right.
So he calls you and says, hey, we're getting the band back together.
Getting
You
the
got
band back
anything?
together.
And you're like, sure, I do.
Yeah.
And you're in
I
the
got all
middle of
the stuff.
withdrawal and you have
Yeah.
no material.
Right.
And so what the hell happens next, Aubrey?
I go through a bunch of old notebooks and I try to piece together some sort of stuff. And it works out. We had two guitarists. We had our original guitarist, Casey Gaskins. He played rhythm, and Brandon would play lead. Casey had went off to Germany, and so we were without a guitarist. We had one of Brandon's former guitar students, Chris Patton, who turned out to be an amazing, amazing singer-songwriter, like Jason Isabel, Drive-By Truckers.
Okay.
Yeah, he's good. And the man would wear like this awesome 70s like polyester suit on stage, like white, like just beautiful. With like a I was raised on Sesame Street t-shirt on.
Yeah. I was raised on the street. Yeah.
So he had filled in where Casey had left. So I mean we'd had a couple of different guitarists, and eventually it just got to the point where I'm writing this stuff. Maybe we can get a more cohesive thing. And it wasn't until after my recovery where I was like, I'm going to start playing the guitar on it and singing and seeing where that goes. And
so Brandon reaches back out to you. You're in the middle of withdrawal.
Right.
And you're going through your notebooks. You're trying to pull some things together, including your life, which, I mean.
Yeah, the life still hadn't hit the rock bottom part yet before it had went into it. This was like a week, 2 weeks before the fucking ass dropped out of it.
Okay, so
And I tried to pull
talk
it
to me
together.
about that. So he calls you and you hadn't quite hit the bottom yet, but you were
Yeah,
already
I've
trying to
had a
get
couple
some.
of bottoms, but
Okay. Well, yeah,
the
that's
thing that got me was, um, knowing that shit, I'm gonna be able to do this again. I'm gonna be able
yeah.
to do music, and I had some sort of forethought. Although I had not touched music, I had said I was doing music.
Right.
I had not at all created anything. I could barely physically function at
Mm,
this point.
okay.
Severe, terrible alcoholism. Just answering a phone, it was difficult enough, more or less, to think of a plan to get back in my band.
Right. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So that was terrible. I had in my everyday job, I work a continental schedule. So you work, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then the next one you're off. So I
Oh,
know
okay.
that, this weekend I've got that long week coming up. So maybe you should like teeter off the drinking a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So I did. And
Okay.
my fucking body stopped working. So
Yeah,
I had to
that's
go and do the ER.
okay.
And I think I had my mom take me the first time. I think that's how it worked out. Yeah.
Okay.
And the nice people at the ER, like, what are you here for? And I'm like, clearly alcoholism.
Right. Right.
Not that I'm not drunk, like my body's fucking shutting down because it
Yeah.
has not had alcohol in 13 years. And I decided, hey, let's be responsible. Not even I'm gonna quit. I just need to be good enough to go to work. You know,
Okay. Okay.
this wasn't a just quit thing. And then my body just everything just kind of started going out of it. I had got to the ER and talked to people and had a nice bullshit story about how I had a great recovery system. I had a great support system.
Okay.
If you'll just give me the Ativan to keep me from shaking,
Right.
I can probably pull this shit together. And this
Okay.
was Thursday. And Saturday, I went back to the ER because I had ran out of the Ativan and I was
Okay.
crashing. And I was way worse now than I was Thursday.
Mm.
Um, and they were like, "So, have you been here before?" I'm like, "Yes." How long ago? How long ago was Thursday?
Yeah. 2 days ago, actually.
My
Yeah.
paperwork's still warm.
Yeah.
He's like, "Do you think you could do this by yourself?" I'm like, "Oh no, clearly not. Like there
Okay.
is no way in shit I can do this. There's like,
Okay.
fuck it, I can't do it." And so
So at
like,
that point, you had started to figure out exactly how deep
yeah,
you were in with this.
yeah, I
Okay.
could see the severity of it. It was getting bad.
Okay.
Right. So I had to. They asked, do you want to go somewhere? I'm like, I need somewhere where I can't voluntarily get out of. Like I had tried voluntarily once to stop drinking maybe like 5, 6 years prior.
Okay.
And I had went to a rehab facility where it was like you'll go 3 times a week for 3 hours each day and you're on the honor system. And
Right.
that didn't work out for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I needed to be hospitalized. I needed to be watched and monitored because my
Right.
body was failing and my
Right.
mind was failing.
Right.
And that was the scary part.
Oh, yeah.
So they had sent me off to a nice place, which I didn't know at the time was pretty much a mental asylum with
Okay.
like 10 people there who are detoxing, and maybe 3 of those are there for alcohol. So
Okay. Okay.
yeah, so that had once I had gone through this and got out of a rehab, I started putting these stories together about the people that I could and could not get to, and
Mm-hmm.
the people that I had lost.
Mm-hmm.
And it was important to me to be able to tell their stories. Every song is a person, every person is a ghost. This way, in my little town or wherever here we're at, that these songs are at, people that are about, they live forever for as long as that's on an audio recording.
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's important for me because I don't feel like there's enough importance in stories or people's lives or what stuff meant. And yes, it's common occurrence, and people go every day, and but to have everyone wants their story to be told.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can make it grandiose and put into a song, that's my way of saying goodbye to some of these people.
Mm. So I mean, it's to me the album in concept. And first of all, thank you for sharing all of that. I mean, I know
Yeah.
with this show, we get into weighty stuff, and we've had a couple episodes where people are really, laying out a lot of very personal stuff. But it's
Yeah.
never an assumption that I have that people are going to come on. As I say, this is not Barbara Walters. I'm not
Right.
expecting people to.
Yeah, man.
But again, this when I first heard about why you had written Ghosts and what the album was for. This idea that it is, a memorial of sorts, it's a tribute of sorts, but it's also clearly in the lyrics, to all of them, I can see you processing these losses and processing, where must this person have been mentally, emotionally, just in their life and with their trauma and everything that they were going through. And one of the things that I love about it, as someone who has loved many addicts, in my family, extended family, friends, and am always angered by the judgment that gets thrown at addiction, because I fully believe that, people will say, oh, you start drinking and that's a gateway, or, you start pot and that's a gateway.
Right.
I think Gabor Mate maybe have been the one first that I heard say it, or the one who first said it, that the real trauma, the real gateway drug is trauma, right? That's the thing.
Right.
That's the thing that starts everybody off on this, because nobody signs up to be an alcoholic for fun. Nobody signs up to be an addict for fun. And you might drink for fun. You might, fuck around with recreational drugs, whatever, for fun. But nobody who becomes an addict by accident. And so I love that with these songs, you're doing many things. You are honoring these people. You are maybe laying to rest not just the ghosts that you lost, but the ghosts of things like guilt, or just processing but that you're also making them human. I don't think, and I mean, this album, there are so many things that I love about it, but it's hard to top for me the lyricism. It's hard to top for me, the way that these lyrics, guys watching, they're raw. And I mean, I hinted that, to Aubrey when we were talking about which song we were going to play tonight, that, of the ones we'd been discussing, that I had a favorite that wasn't on the list. And I'll just go ahead and say right now, Tonight We Dine with Crows just levels me every time. I love it.
Nice.
I love it so much. I love one of the things that got me originally, and I will, as I am always with everything, I will be completely honest here. Within the first minute of the first time I heard that song, you had me crying. And the reason was before even the lyrics or anything came in. And I'm thinking about the song and I'm getting teary, so bear with me. But
no, you're good.
My favorite Alice in Chains song is Nutshell. There's something about that song that it's so, given Lane's story, given everything, it's so heartbreaking. And from the second that Tonight We Dine with Crows came on, I got that Nutshell vibe. And if I had hair on my arms, it would have stood up, because I was like, ooh, okay. So, and I'm already, this is, I'm on the fourth song in, right? And so I already know what I'm in for. I've already had a lot of emotions. I've gone through a lot of things, but that one, and I want to let you finish what you were going to say, but that one grabbed me right away in a way that I cannot really articulate why. There is something about, it's funny, you have a song called A Keening,
Right.
which for anybody who
Yes.
doesn't know is like it's a wail of grief. You know, it's just it's
Exactly.
that sound. And
You know.
the Tonight We Dine with Crows is, to me, the instrumental emotional version of a keening. There's something
Thanks.
in that just it punches me right in the gut. And
Yeah.
I'm so impressed with how you've done. So you were starting to say Nutshell is
Yeah. Nutshell is one of my favorite Alice in Chains songs. Jerry Control's a brilliant songwriter,
Mhm,
and we came musically of age around the time that Alice in Chains and Nirvana were both doing their Unplugged.
mhm,
And when I had started writing music, it was on an acoustic guitar. It's on a
mhm,
12 string my mom had
mhm,
got.
mhm.
So everything that I've ever done has always started out on an acoustic guitar, and those were the reasons.
Mhm.
Yeah, Nutshell, that whole album is amazing. There is an Alice in Chains album called Sap. I don't know if you've heard it,
No, I don't think
and
so.
it's got Chris Cornell singing with Lane Staley, and it will blow your damn mind. The
Okay, I
name of
know
the
what I'm doing
song,
when we stop talking because
the
you just
name of the
mentioned.
song,
Wow.
name of the song is called Right Turn.
Okay.
And if you, yeah, just look up Alice in Chains Sap, SAP,
Okay.
and Chris's vocals in it. So those were two of my big idols. I loved how Chris Cornell would use the blues in his
Yes.
voice,
Yes.
and it was that emotive, and
Oh
that is
yeah.
what I wanted in my
Oh,
vocals,
and
and being
Aubrey,
a,
I'm like, my brain is like, oh, and I wanted to ask him this, and oh, and I
yeah,
wanted to ask him like that's. I mean, okay, I'm going to slow my ADHD brain down for a second because there's
there's
so
two
much
of
I
us
want to
now.
get.
That's cool.
Yeah,
But Tonight
great.
We
We're good.
Dine with Crows though is one of my favorite songs, and it's
Okay.
one that I think got it's not the least amount of attention. I think it's yet to be discovered. The way we do music now
Hmm.
is so also ADD, like
Right.
how
Right.
it's put out. So I could
Right.
see a slower song,
Yeah.
like trying to sell a Pink Floyd, Alice in Chains kind of sounding
Right.
song,
Right. 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 Right.
to the
Where you
kids.
have like 6 seconds to get people's attention, and then they're
Yeah.
gone if you don't. So, no, I mean,
Some
I
sometimes things need to simmer, you know?
That's right. And
It's the fucking
I'm
point of
so
music.
glad that you didn't cater to that. I mean, it's a
No,
conversation that I've had
I don't cater.
in different formats with different people on this show that, Dion Powder mentioned it,
Mhm.
Michael Body mentioned it, that it's this idea of, the a la carte, TikTok limited attention span,
Right,
nobody really listens to albums anymore. And I mean, first of
right.
all, guys, however short one's attention span is, this album has 6 songs on it, okay? And they're not 19 minutes long each.
They're
You're
not.
talking maybe a half an hour for the whole album. So
It
I think
really is.
we
Yeah,
can
it's like
handle that.
it's 48 minutes,
Yeah,
something
I
like
think
that.
we can handle that. So, but I mean, it is, and I don't always do this, but with you, I definitely want to go song by song
Okay.
and talk about each one of them. But I mean, to back up a little bit, there, first of all, the timbre of your voice, just, I love it. I love it, Aubrey. I
Thanks.
do, because you have the ability to tweak what you're doing depending on what you're singing. So, as I
Right.
always say, I will mention things as comparisons. It's not to indicate that they're derivative,
No.
and it's always complimentary. But
Yeah.
as I said, I heard STP, Broken and the Damned.
Yeah.
Temperance, I heard more of a Matchbox 20 Rob Thomas kind of feel to the
All
voice.
right. All right.
On a Keening, The Hollows, I heard more
Mm.
of a Jeff Buckley, and then
See.
I hear Alice in Chains, and I hear, so I mean, it is, your voice is, to me, the grounding element of the songs, because
Thanks.
the instrumentation, which is spectacular as well, you're not putting together simplistic or simple instrumentation.
No.
It's with 4 people, you are really layering out this very rich sound. And I
Yeah.
mean, especially with Anton on the drums, again, like it's such a fine line with drummers, especially
Jesus, man.
to be right, to make the song your own, to add the flavor to it that you need to without overplaying and completely distracting everybody from what else is going on in the song. And he's
Right.
always on the right side of that line, like every single time.
And
But
what's also super crazy, not to cut you off, sorry.
no, feel free.
What's super crazy about this is when we did this album, I had mentioned that we did everything absolutely ourselves.
Right,
Okay, that's everything. That's the mixing, that's the mastering.
right.
That was just me in pajamas mixing and mastering this.
Yeah.
So kudos to me. I figured out how this stuff works now. This will
Yeah.
be much easier for like, the other EPs. But so we all upgraded equipment. We're like, just if we're gonna do this, when I put out Temperance on Spotify, and it was like I think one of the first things we put out, I did all of that on a dual core laptop. And Anton had went out, God bless his soul, and bought, and I wish I had room and money, but he bought the brand new Roland drum kit that like Butch Vig endorses, and Butch Vig is my favorite producer, so that explains my giant wall of sound,
I know.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
But so he got these rolling drums, and I'm like, okay, so you can just send me the drum tracks, and the snare will never sound like shit, is what you're telling me? Hell yeah. And the snare has not one time sounded like shit. So Anton spends all this time for each song crafting the actual tone of each individual drum.
Yeah.
So the drums to Tonight We Die with Crows are more of like a jazz kit than they would be this big thing. But he has taken a lot of time to add all this stuff in there. And also my favorite writer and favorite singer is Jeff Buckley.
Okay, so there you go. So
around.
Well, because what is that song You and I, the one where it's mostly a cappella, and again, that's the same feeling that I get with Tonight We Dine with Crows. It's that like it the first time I heard You and I by Jeff Buckley, I mean, what a loss, that guy. I'm still mad about that. I couldn't breathe. It was, because it's just that voice and again, he has kind of a keening to his timbre as well,
he is. Yeah, I didn't find out about Jeff Buckley. I was in high school, and I was always like a punk rocker in high school. Like I loved like 70s English punk rock, like Exploited and all that. And then I loved it. And then you get to the point where you're like, when you're a real punk rocker, you can't listen to anything else other than punk rock. But I was watching TV one morning, I think before school or something, and Jeff Buckley's So Real came on, like the VH1 music block. And I was like, there was something about it. And there was something in the voice to make a guy who is like a hardcore punk rocker go like, what the fuck is this? There's something here.
He was very special. He was very
You
special.
and I is just haunting. It's everything about it. It's that it is this long drone of this tension-filled note, and that's not even what his voice is doing. His voice is giving off this like frail, fragile, broken. You can hear every whisper, and that I wanted to take. Although not subconsciously, there are things from singers I get, and that's
sure.
His vocal range, man. He's why I learned how to do falsetto, but I never ever use it in this band. I just kind of stick with my baritone.
Yeah. Ooh, I'm gonna have to hear some of that. No, I mean, I just, there, and that idea that you are grounding the songs, because there is so much intricacy with Anton's drums, and one of the things that you and Brandon do on a couple of the songs that I love is this kind of harmonizing
Yeah,
double melody lines and
it's so
on
cool.
the guitar and everything. And it just it is a, I'm gonna go ahead and say it.
Right.
I don't think I've said this yet. I feel like it's a perfect album. I
You
do.
think so?
I
You
do.
think they're all
Because
6 out of 6 bangers, is what
I
you're
do.
saying?
I do because it hits every box for me. It's
Okay.
authentic. It is, it's fucking good. Like, just, it's just plain good. Like, it's just that's not, I don't think that's a matter for debate. I think objectively it's just really good. It is emotional, and it says something. It says a lot. But it's not
Yeah.
just, banal kind of stupid meaningless lyrics, which can be fun, but like for me, I'm
Yeah,
never gonna love an album forever that has lyrics like that. It's got to mean something.
and it's not that we wouldn't ever, and we're not going to ever write a feel good dance hit of the summer.
Right.
That's just not my thing, because I think I'm wasting the time that I am given to speak to anyone on any kind of anything, and that what I'm going to give you is like Gucci man. Like, no, I can't do that.
And I
Like,
mean, look, thankfully we have people who will, because we
yeah,
need that
and
too. No one wants to drive
you know
around
what,
in the
and that
middle of
makes a lot
August
of
playing,
people a
something
lot of money.
depressing. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
but for me, I can't do it. This is music is one of the few things that I'm good at. I've done it my entire life, and I can't see a world without in it. And I'm not
Yeah.
really sure how I didn't do anything when I was like so far in the bottom of a bottle.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
then again, you don't see anything. I mean,
Well,
the
and that just goes
addiction.
to show you how far away from yourself you had gotten, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Well, I mean, I had completely forgot that could paint or could draw or any of this.
mm,
So, and I think you'll like this because I think you're the kind of person that's going to like this. So, I do these paintings, right?
yeah, yeah,
All right. So it was part of just keep my hands busy because I get this like kind of ADD kind of thing going sometimes where I can't do music, but I can do art. I can do art, but I can't do music.
right, right.
So it's one of those. So when I do art, but I started painting very majestic portraits of cat buttholes. And let me tell you,
I've seen this.
I've got this white cat named Bowie, and
Yeah,
she's
yeah,
got a
yeah.
blue eye and a green eye, right? She's
It's
super
very
pretty.
pretty. Yeah.
That cat has at least made my family like no shit like $350 and just majestic cat butt fucking paint.
It's like you have a cat butthole OnlyFans, but it's paintings. It's the weirdest niche,
Yeah,
but good for you for finding and filling it up, because no, I mean,
whatever pays the phone bill, man. Yeah,
I'm not going to say that the paintings are perfect paintings, but I will say I think that Ghost is a perfect album. But
I like it.
we'll make cat butthole judgments on that later for those who have not seen the art yet. But
We'll put them
okay,
up.
so I mean, so it is. It is okay. I think this is the point at which we start going through the album, because I know
Okay.
that, I mean, first of all, the band, as it is now, I mean, I know you had Casey for a while
Yeah.
before, but so I mean, because you had the Petrichor album that came
Yes,
out, right? Now that
we
was
did.
2018, 2019, somewhere in
It
there.
sounds about right. Yeah.
Okay.
We were just trying to put a very good cheap demo together to get to people to go like, okay, this is us.
Right.
Um, and it wasn't that it was a bad experience; it's that we did everything live.
Right.
So when
Right.
if my vocal didn't like do that, everybody had to do it over. So some
Right.
stuff, and you could tell, like, no matter how much vocal scrubbing you could do, if you're singing something as hard as you can for 12 hours or 8 hours, however long it is, and you're just excited, and then you feel bad for people wanting to go home, and you're like, shit, well, I guess we could overdub it. But
Yeah.
Anton is such a beast, and with that, like, I love his drum parts on it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there is that I do want to go back because on Petrichor, Brandon plays that solo, but I'm also playing now a solo on top of his solo that will
Right.
interweave.
Right.
So
Right.
it's super cool sounding. So I want to go back and do that. with this newfound technology we got
Mm.
and released Petrichor. And Burning the
Okay.
Witches. Burning the Witches I loved a lot. So we're gonna go back and do some of the old stuff and put it back out because I feel like those need to be heard. They're
Well,
still
and that's
there's some
right. They're
value.
good. And I mean, for people who are curious, it's not on Spotify, but if you go on the band's YouTube,
Right. Yeah.
you know, and I think on your Facebook page too, you have a lot of those videos of people go
Yeah.
way, way, way back like I did. But I mean, so you had, I mean, you know, uh, what it was, you had like 5 or 6 songs on that, right? I mean, you know,
Yeah.
Burn the Witches, Petrichor, you had Show Your Teeth, you had oh gosh, I'm not remembering all of them, but
I think it was like Ophelia. We had Ophelia on there, and
right,
then
21
yes,
grams,
21
Beautiful
Grams.
Liar. Yeah, so
Yeah.
you had a bunch, and I mean, it's funny because it's it is not the same sound that you have now,
No,
but
not
it's
at all.
definitely a cousin of it, you know. I mean, I heard more Nine Inch Nails in
Really?
those songs.
No.
Yeah, I did. I
Okay.
did, especially Beautiful Liar. I got more of a Nine Inch Nails feel. There was just something about the aggressiveness of it.
See, we thought Beautiful, or I mean, I guess I can speak for myself, but I think when I did Beautiful Liar, I didn't, that might have been one of the first ones I brought to the band.
Okay.
And so that one, yeah, in fact, it was one of the first ones. Might have been the first one, and I didn't know if that would work because that
Okay.
song for me is very, very poppy or very radio friendly. And being that like that's the first song I'm gonna bring to these three guys, and I was
Right,
like,
right.
all
You didn't
right,
want them to
but
feel,
then I
yeah.
think they just liked it because I dropped the F bomb in the chorus, but I do it pretty. I sing it pretty, so you can't be mad at it. There's like a vocal running word. Fuck, who
Right.
doesn't? Come on, might as
No,
well.
but I think, you know, I mean, I wouldn't say that there are any of the songs on Ghost that I wouldn't consider to be radio friendly. I think it just
Right.
depends on what people want to hear on the radio, you know, and there are going to be
Yeah.
people who don't want to wait out a minute of an intro and then, you know, get to where you know, like but that's fine. That doesn't mean that the song
Yeah.
isn't still catchy and radio friendly. But so
Right.
so okay,
Right.
so
Right.
you had done that, you know, you had put all of those songs out, and
Yeah.
then obviously the pandemic started and things kind of, you know,
Yes.
and so then when, you know, Brandon, you know, back in the picture, you and Yako and Anton and Brandon, you know, decided to start this project. And
Mhm.
it was cool going back through, because I'm on your Facebook page way back to like 2017 at this point, right? And like
All right.
scrolling back up from there to the current, you know, posts and stuff, and
Yeah.
seeing, hey, you know, we're laying down this new one called Temperance. I think it's going to be great. Or, hey, I'm doing. And
Yeah.
so I saw how long these songs were in the works, right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
so, but so the album, okay. So again, just to frame it for everybody, we've got Ghosts. It
Yeah.
came out, you know,
It's a
3
lot of
months ago,
good.
whatever, almost 4 now, I guess.
I know.
And so it starts off with The Broken and the Damned, which we played a little bit ago. And again,
Right.
I mean, since every one of these songs is a person and a story and a ghost, and I'm not saying that you need to get into, you don't need to do anything, you know, this is your interview, but you know, do you want to tell us a little bit about that story?
We
Do you,
can.
you know, what did you want people to be, you know, what were you honoring in this? Doesn't even have to be details or anything like that, but I'm saying, like, we can talk about the lyrics a little bit and all of that, because guys, you really, you need to, when you listen to this album, which I know you're all going to do as soon as the show is over,
Please check it out.
you have to, no, they have to, because I've told them to, and I love
contract.
them, and they call me mom, so now they're gonna have to do it. I'm gonna put everybody in timeout, but I don't even do that. But
love it.
But so you've got to pay attention to the lyrics. Okay, you really do, because it's and thankfully they're all very easy to understand, the way that Aubrey is singing them. But sit with them and I do, because it was, you were nice enough to send me lyrics, and I was like, no, I double checked to make sure, but no, everything was clear. because they're beautiful. So
I went to
let's
that.
start with the Broken and the Damned a little bit. Let's
Okay.
talk about that a little bit.
Broken and the Damned, I had, it's more of a collective. I had lost a lot of people to suicide.
Mm,
It wasn't a couple. It's been a lot.
mhm.
And this was more of my, this was more of me telling myself that, it would be all right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, when you look at it. It's such a huge loss, losing anyone, and it absolutely does not get any easier when the numbers get higher.
No.
And during the Corona, I had a lot of time to sit and think about it, and it was sad to watch. And I was watching
Yeah.
people drop like flies, and we had family members, and I think like during the span of like a day, I think I had lost three people
Jesus.
to suicide, and it was enough. I wanted to write something where one of the lines in it, is just keep breathing,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and I mean, there's little things tied into all of the lyrics in that song in particular, but it was more or less of to pay tribute to just everyone as a whole that I had
Yeah.
lost,
Yeah.
early due to suicide. Yeah,
Yeah. No, and it of the songs, I think it and that makes sense to me now because it is the most general and it does come across as sort of, Aubrey taking stock of things and going, okay, this is who I'm here for. This is what I'm going to
right.
represent. This is like, if you just hang on, if you just keep breathing, if you just don't give up, and it's interesting because it sounds like a hopeful message, but it's clearly coming from a very despairing moment.
Yeah,
And I thought that combination was sort of exquisitely heartbreaking because I think it's easy to be hopeful when everything is okay,
yeah,
but when
sure.
everything is falling apart, if you can go, oh my God, I don't even know how I'm going to do it, but if you just keep breathing, if you just keep
Right,
showing up, if you just stay here, and I don't know how we're going to do it. And I know you might not even want to, and I can't even give you a really good reason necessarily why you should, but just if you do, this is where we go, and this is
yeah,
what we do next. And it's I think it's so important because when I talked to Dion Powder Band, and we are talking to Dion about you know how he says, a lot of people will write songs about the descent of something, and
yeah.
he wanted to write something about, kind of the upturn.
Okay,
And
right.
you were, I think, still kind of at the nadir of the moment there, where you
Yeah,
were not in the upturn. You were sort
no,
of, at the bottom there, back and forth, and it could have gone here or here. And
yeah,
to write from that place is so vulnerable, and it's
yes,
so raw, and that I'm so there's no good word for it, but the fact that that's what came out of that moment for you, especially now hearing, the backstory somewhat, like,
yeah.
shit, I mean,
And
there's strength in that is admirable. There, it really is.
when I did the lyrics for it, and there are probably by now, a million, anti-suicide songs, or
Sure.
this awareness, and
Yeah.
I didn't want to make it, and trying to figure out how to say this, but I didn't want it to make it cheesy. I didn't want to
Right.
make it hokey.
You can
When you
do it.
talk about,
Climb the mountain. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
this wasn't the climb. This was me at the very fucking bottom of it, looking
Right.
down afterwards, going, "All right."
Right.
So it's from there. And
Right.
once you start taking stock of all that, it's a heavy thing to put onto paper.
Well, and
But to
and I
to not make
mean,
it cheesy, you
it
know.
is, but I think, you know people who are in depression and addiction, in any sort of constellation of situations that makes suicide seem like a viable option. I've lost, people, family,
Right.
friends to suicide, and that there's a moment where, and I can't, let me back that up. I'm not even going to begin to presume that I understand anything about those moments, but I can imagine, only just from what I've watched and lived through and whatever, that as bad as things are, there's that moment of, well, is it still better than not being here or
Right.
not?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the snapshot
Mhm.
of where The Broken and the Damned was written. It was,
Right.
I'm not necessarily hopeful. I'm
Yeah.
not necessarily convinced that things are going to get better. I have
Right.
no fucking idea how to do this.
Yeah. And I'm not okay.
But I'm right.
You know.
But I'm going to keep breathing. And
Yeah.
I think that boiled down to its essence is probably about as honest a kind of hope as you can give, because it's just, I don't know what happens next, but I know that I want something to come next. And
Right.
I think that there are people that are going to need to hear that at that moment, that
Yeah.
you weren't, because there was no way what you were going to write was going to be cheesy. First of all, because that's just clearly not your brand, but secondly, because in order for it to be cheesy, I think songs that are cheesy about things like hope or perseverance or whatever, they're cheesy because they're usually written by people who've never been in that moment. It's like the
They've never
toxic
experienced.
positivity
Yeah.
people who are like,
Right.
keep going, it'll get better.
Yeah.
Everything happens for a reason. And I'm like, fuck
Yeah.
you and the horse you
But
rode in on,
those,
and you're fucking, like, I hate
right.
that. I really hate that stuff.
Those
People
people
who
have no idea.
no,
Yeah.
and the people who have lived it are like, you know what?
Yeah.
This is fucking balls and it sucks, and I
Right.
can't tell you things are going to get better, and I have nothing pretty to say. All
Right.
I know is that I want you to stay here, and we'll
Yeah.
figure it out somehow, maybe. Okay, but just
Yeah.
stay here. And that's the least cheesy thing ever, because
Nice.
it's real. It's
Yeah.
there's nothing pretty about that. Yeah.
Thanks. Yeah. No, you nailed it.
Thank you.
That's it.
But I
That's
mean,
what it's
and
about.
again, also just musically, because and this seems like a good moment to kind of weave this in here. And
Yeah.
I think, while I usually tend to ask these as discrete questions, I think everything about Wormwood Project is interwoven. So we might as well do
Yeah.
the interview that way. In your songwriting process, because I imagine it's a little bit different from song to song. Talk to me about writing this one. If, as much as you remember, because I know it was obviously a difficult time, from everything, to understate it grossly, and then also just
Yeah.
obviously, recovery, there's a lot of memory loss, there's a lot of fuzziness and all of that. But so what was the process with this? Did you get the lyrics first? Was that, did you, start with a riff? How did this song come into existence?
I think it was basically a riff. I had just started writing something. I knew I had needed songs. Lyrically, I really wanted to start to try to focus on being a better writer. This is, I think, around the time I'm really starting to try to take stock in myself.
Okay.
I'm getting better.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't think I had started going to therapy yet or anything like that. I started that later on, but I started out with just a riff first. Lyrics always take me the longest. For most songs, I get, I don't know, but my therapist calls it not quite like early schizophrenia, or not then, but
Okay.
how I write is, she says, is fascinating. But I get a lot of, like, a picture of a person's story, really.
Okay.
So it almost like a ghost without having my own personal ghost. And so some songs, if I see it, I can see the mildew in between the tiles, in the wall, in Beautiful Liar. I could see, like, I get certain scenes.
So are you
And then
writing to describe what you're visually?
yes,
Huh. That
yeah.
is such a neurodivergent way to do things, Aubrey. And I mean
Um,
that in the best way as a super neurodivergent person myself. Like that's
it's great as an artist because in the Ghost EP, I can almost put the image for that onto, like, I could, as an artist, as a
artist.
painter,
Yeah, you could
draw it
literally
out.
do that.
So when
Oh, okay.
lyrics in my notebook, it's very like ADHD of me, but I always have illustrations
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
next to my lyrics, and it's
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
that helps me pay attention to the shit I'm writing.
But you know what? That fills in another piece for me, and it's why I fucking love doing this show. I love talking to you guys, all of you. I do because it's so fun to hear the music and get my own best guess at
Right?
things, and then get the actual behind the music story here. Because again, when you have a line like, if you sew your eyes shut, if you sew
Yeah.
your eyes, can you still see her? Like, and
Mhm.
obviously I know I'm jumping around for songs, but
Yeah.
like it is so vivid, and your
Yeah.
lyrics are so descriptive, and that makes a ton of sense to me, because it's almost like you are describing. It's like in the museum, when you have
Yeah.
the little description of the thing underneath it.
Yes.
It's like you're seeing a picture, so you're
Right.
writing music in pictures and then
Yeah.
kind of narrating it, and that is
Yes.
really fucking cool. I love that, so I'm geeking out on
Yeah.
that really hard right now. So okay, so
Which is, it's
yeah, yeah.
weird is like, so the pictures don't go away, and I guess they're still ghosts, but they don't go away until everything is like perfect. Like for me, petrichor and burning the witches and stuff, those pictures haven't ever gone away.
Mm,
Their ghosts haven't ever gone away
mm,
because they haven't been recorded the right way.
mm. Okay, that's because it's a trope of movies like The Sixth Sense or whatever, that when a ghost comes to someone, it's because there's unfinished business, right? And then
Could
once
be.
the
Yeah.
business has been finished, then the ghost is at
Then
peace
it goes
and they
away.
can
Right.
leave, right? And so, but
Right.
you find that is actually, and I'm not talking about believing in ghosts or what. I'm just saying, like, it is
Sure.
emotionally, you've got that watermark, right, of
Yeah.
that person and that
Yes.
situation. And so that's fascinating to me, that these people are insisting on their stories. They're insisting
Right.
on their due to you. And
Right.
so, I mean, so what were the images that you got when you were writing The Broken and the Damned? Was it just sort of more of a gestalt? Because that is a slightly different, as we were
Yeah.
discussing, maybe not specific ghosts, but just sort of the whole of the thing. Or, was there
It, it,
imagery of that for that one?
it, the image for that was more of just the overall like overhead view of, there's a line in it that is damn near Jeff Buckley, um, where it talks about all the tears on the faces of funeral mourners that
Yeah,
won't dry
yeah,
if you'll
yeah.
just keep on breathing. And I think for that song, the image that I had got was that a black and white,
Okay.
kind of noir, that old timey, tear down the cheek, kind
Yeah,
of
yeah, yeah.
like,
Okay.
but like overhead views of stuff like that, like an old landscape portrait. But
Okay.
I get it, or you get little flash images of other things. But that kind of that was a nice letting go,
Mm,
um,
mm,
to come to terms with a subject as serious as that, and
mm.
to be able to do it within yourself, to be able to put that to bed, and not be, and I hate to say it, like haunted by it, but to get that, out there, and to get the message across to people, and go like, okay, now do your thing, and then you can only hope, as a parent, like, it's not judged too harshly when you set it out into the world. And
Right, right, right.
so yeah, they go off and they leave, and
Well,
they have
but
their
I
own
mean,
little life.
that is to me the most, on the nose description of music is therapy. that you could give somebody, because that is what you do in therapy, right? Is that
Yes.
I say all the time in life and just whatever, that, the only way out from trauma is through. You can't
Yeah.
outrun it. You can't ignore it. You can't try and deny it. It's going to catch up with you one way or the other. You have to deal with it. You have to process it. And you do have a way to do that. You have multiple ways, musically, lyrically, in terms of your art, things like that. But I mean, so how synesthetic is the process then of putting the instrumentation together? How do you decide first of all, is that all you? Is that, you come in and you have an idea and you and Brandon just sit down and start writing melodies? How does everybody, put their parts together?
There are some songs that are, we call them, we don't call it, but, there'll be Brandon songs where Brandon will have an idea for a riff, or he'll have a full thing. And then he normally, or always basically, is kind of run with it lyric wise.
Okay.
Like he had Bound was a Brandon song. And then the ending of it, that instrumentation, I'm hugely inspired by Trent Reznor.
Mm-hmm.
And
there you go. Nine Inch Nails. There you go.
I'm very inspired by soundtrack work.
Okay.
So I'm a sucker for cellos. That's why it's all over and Ghost with the samples. And I wanted to add that to it. And I think Brandon wanted to go, all right, so here's the thing about Bound.
Which we can get into now, because it's the next track. So we might as well.
All right, so Bound, I think Brandon had originally wanted Bound to be about, we have this thing in the band where something is really, really cool. It's JTT, and that would be Jennifer Tilly's tits, because they're epic.
They really are. She's blessed. She definitely is.
So whatever stuff is just awesome, you're like, JTT. So we're going to make that a thing.
But, you need merch that says that, by the way, now. Yeah.
If you listen to the very ending of Bound, and Bound was a movie with Jennifer Tilly and Judy Dijon. So it's supposed to be a sexy song, but it's not really a sexy song at all. But if you listen to the Lady Whisperer, if you have on headphones, okay, that's Jennifer Tilly from Chucky.
Okay. Yeah, I do not listen. I'm gonna have to go back. Okay.
And it's just a female whisper, and if you listen to it, it's her in Bride of Chucky, and she's saying, "We belong dead." So she's doing the Bride of Frankenstein quote.
Okay.
Which ultimately I thought, kind of went with that.
Seriously, that ties together so many pieces of what we've been talking about in an oddly, I would not have thought Jennifer Tilly was going to factor into a Wormwood Project discussion, but there we are.
Much like in a Jennifer Tilly movie, she pops up right when you least expect her.
It's true.
There we go.
She and her spectacular tatas, but okay, so let's get into talking about Bound a little bit, because that one, and I mean, it's not the only time on the album that you guys play with tempo and genre, from intro to verse, chorus, meat of the song, outro. You guys are jumping around a lot, but I think Bound probably has the most distinct and dichotomous intro relative to the rest of the song of anything else on the album, right? So for anyone who hasn't heard it yet, this starts with this very fast, I would call it kind of punk intro, right?
It's starting out swinging, and when we play the song live, there's no count off. It's just Anton.
You're just in it. Wow. Okay.
You have to
be locked in as a band to pull that off.
You don't know what the tempo is until you start. You only get one snare drum hit, and it's pop.
And then you're in. Okay. Okay. So and so then you begin that way, and I'm like, okay, well, this is going to be a completely different kind of song. But then all of a sudden you slow everything down, and Bound becomes for me a very Alice in Chains-esque kind of song. Again, there's that real sludgy, grungy tempo, the whole vibe, that sort of drenched Seattle kind of sound. And again, you've got, lyrics about grief, about the loss of love or a lover or a loved one.
Right.
And the lyrics are very poignant in that one. The idea of, like wanting to bargain with the devil or trade the devil for her soul, and
Yeah.
all of this. And so, there's so much drama to it.
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit before we get too much into the music about that ghost, that story. What is the story that you wanted to tell with Bound?
And Bound ultimately ends up, um, not to be too personal about anything, but
No,
it's
not at all.
about, when you always have these certain couples, the Johnny and June Cash, and every once in a while, you see that where that works, and it's Bound is when you could love somebody so absolutely much
Mm-hmm.
that you would trade your soul to make sure that they just ended up somewhere anywhere else okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it was that longing for someone, that had gone.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, and I mean, ultimately, I think in the chorus it talks about, bury me where she lays between the weeping willows.
Yeah.
And Jason Isbell is another writer, I just absolutely love. He's a artist from Georgia,
Mm-hmm.
and just one of the great lyricists. I don't think he gets enough credit. And I'm so glad I got myself out of like just being in that punk rock mentality of not being able to break out, because I would have never found artists like Jeff
Mm-hmm.
Buckley or Jason
Mm-hmm.
Isbell, or
Mm-hmm.
gone back and listened to Otis Redding recordings to figure out how he gets that grit, or Joe Cocker,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and how these people get the soul in there and that grit and that emotion. And I
Especially
want to
once
feel
they've
that.
stopped smoking, and good for you on that one, Aubrey.
Yeah, man, my voice has gotten so much better. Holy shit. But now I vape, and guess who can't put vape down? So traded one thing for another.
Yeah, well, that is the perpetual battle, but one thing at a time, right? So okay, so I
That's
mean,
why.
and that one, Bound lyrically, that one seemed, not that they're not all personal, but that one seemed to have a particular um longing to it, a particular heartbreak to it. And what you said, and what you wanted to convey definitely comes across. And I think that it was an interesting choice to put those lyrics to that instrumentation,
Yeah,
because it isn't as it isn't pat, it isn't exactly what you would expect if you looked at the lyrics and went, okay, this is what I bet the song is going to sound like. And even with, having slowed it down after that,
yeah,
grab you by the balls intro that you have there, I mean, I noticed that throughout the song, you're alternating between this almost frenetic kind of, you know tempo and vibe and instrumentation, and then
that's Anton. That,
it comes back down again to more of that
yeah,
slow grungy kind of sound, and it keeps you very on its edge. And I feel
yeah,
like, the song's lyrics are, if not mirrored by, they're amplified by the way that that song keeps changing itself from
right.
piece to piece to piece, because you have moments of real wistfulness in the lyrics, and then you have ones that are much more urgent and much more
Yeah,
intense, and the music is doing that, not necessarily in lockstep with the lyrics. But I just thought it was such a meta song in that way, that the feeling that you get just from what you're doing instrumentally, it 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 makes the lyrics resonate more immediately, because you are putting the listener very much in whichever emotional space you want to at that moment, depending on what
right.
the song is doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, for this song is it's difficult to do live mainly
I
because of
bet.
the intro.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just that go. That's that's kind of difficult, but just being a baritone, I really love Mark Lanigan as a Seattle singer too from Screaming Trees.
Okay. And I
I
don't know that
mean,
band very well. I know.
uh,
I think they had one big song that everyone heard at
they
some point.
did.
I couldn't tell you what it
Um,
was, but
but his solo work and just the grit and the voice, like that low Iggy Pop,
yeah, 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 yeah.
uh,
Okay.
Leonard Cohen kind of thing. And so for the verse, I'm just using that more register. And if you
Mm.
don't have a good mixer or a good person working the board who knows how to
Would
pull up a baritone
would
voice,
yeah.
is just not there. So that's been our big struggle, or that's been my biggest struggle to figure out how to try to do things live
Mm.
as far as that vocal.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
so
because you are moving around, so it's not like
yeah,
you set
and
it and
now
forget it.
in live, whenever I hit the chorus, I'm just going for the I think the higher backing vocal. I found like a cool midpoint to
Mm.
where the voice is just breaking, so
Mm. Mm.
it
Yeah, right
works
in your
out.
brain. Yeah, okay. Okay. Okay, so I mean, so with that one, again, we started to answer it a little bit with the broken and the damned, but is everyone coming to you with like so for the drums, okay, like you
Yeah,
get in your head, for a song, you have the lyrics that are coming and you sort of know what they're going to say. Does Anton get lyrics? Does he get, a basic guitar track? Like, is he writing? I'm assuming he's writing his own drums. You're not saying this is what I want you to do, Anton, because you don't tell
no,
Anton what to do. Nobody needs to tell Anton what to do. He knows what to do.
no, I don't. I give Anton very vague general ideas and moments of musical history. Like, all right, in Everlong, where Taylor Hawkins did this drum fill, that one, something like that right there.
Okay.
And then he'll start doing it. And then it's that kind of musician talk.
Okay. That's cool. Yeah.
So
Yeah. I love it.
so we do a lot of that. But what I'll do just so they can have a better vision of my song,
Mhm.
if I have a base of something, I'll record everything here and I'll send it to them. And the drums I'll put in, I'll use Superior Drummer. I'll map out something just so I can kind of keep time with myself, but something that also doesn't suck because I'm still picky about stuff I put out, even if it's just for my
Just a
band members to
demo.
hear.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there'll
For
be
the band.
demos that are still super clean and polished,
Right.
but it's
Right.
just, me getting an idea of where this is.
Yeah.
And then once they get it and we start playing it live, all together, Yako and Anton are such a great force together and very complementary of each other as far as a rhythm section, to
Mm-hmm.
where they just have this thing going on. And Brendan and I just really add textures. Broken and the Damned, and not to go back to that, but the beginning of that is very Soundgarden. I
Yes.
think it's
Yeah.
got
Yeah. Yeah.
that echo, that delay, that reverb, that distortion, that atmosphere, and
That sort of
that's our
Spoon Man-y kind of. Yeah.
that's our love of Soundgarden.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So no, I mean that, and that's one of the cool things about having a shared musical vocabulary, and
yeah,
if you have a connection where you could say, okay, we want to go for a feel of this band and maybe pull elements of, and I mean you're even being more specific, like, hey, this part of this song where there's this
right,
fill. But I mean,
yeah.
so and then from the time that we'll hand the guys the vision, the early vision of what you want, to where you're sitting down in your pajamas and mixing and mastering. Is it usually a quicker process? Is it something that takes a while? Does it depend on the song?
It is dependent on everyone's outside work schedule, because what I'll do is I will go, if it's something that I've written, I will lay down a rough guitar track for right first, just by myself, and I'll put
Okay.
my guitar down, and then I'll send that to Anton so he could hear it. He knows it's to a click, and he could start practicing his drums and
Okay.
or lay them down if he wants to. All
Okay.
he's got to do at that point, he has the song already mapped out. Brandon can put his guitars on it from his house, send me that back. I
Right.
get Yako over here. We record his bass in house, and then Anton, once he's done crafting and making sure all that's good,
Yeah.
once I have all the parts, I just put all the parts together, and then I craft everything as a whole, and then add
Okay.
all my other stuff in once I get all that. So
So
it takes a good
usually
minute.
but it's not that the songwriting process for each of you is the slow part. It's just having the time to get everything done and down and sent
It's the
and
time. Temperance took a good while because Temperance, there's so many time changes into it, and I'm sure we'll get into it later. But
yeah,
the way
next
it flows,
yeah. Yeah.
that was, yeah, that one, that's a lot in there.
Okay. Um, so okay, so and I mean, so I mean, again, you're lining them really nicely. So the next one on the album is Temperance, and again,
Yeah,
that's another one of my favorites. I really,
thanks.
it's funny. I remember the first time I heard it, you know, and again, people know when I'm prepping, I the first time I listen through to an album, I just sit there with my eyes closed and I listen, you know, and I'm not
Thanks.
not not trying to think about anything. I'm just experiencing it. And I remember thinking there was something so Eagles about the guitar riff
Really?
at the beginning. Yeah, and like, but good Eagles, because I feel like
Uh,
there are different ones, but like there was something about that the vocals and the guitar at the beginning. Also, I get, and I hope you don't take this badly, but I also do get a bit of a, as I said, a Matchbox 20 feel there. And I, that's a band that I actually really love. I know they were very popular. And so some people are just inherently kind of anti them because it was, you know, a very popular band, but like, you know, he has a lot of soul to his voice and I liked a lot of what they did. So
right.
I was getting that vibe at the beginning, you know, and then
Sure.
again, you have this very quiet, you know, more building kind of intro.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, your tempo comes up. We're into more of like a clearly alt rockish, grungish kind of thing. You know, and you know, that one is very percussive to me,
Yes.
that song. Not that they're not all, you know, because
This
Anton again
one,
is a beast, but that one especially. So talk to me about that a
this
little
Temperance, as a whole musically, that there, man, there's just so many tons of layers in it, and I was curious how the computer was going to hold up since I just built it, and I was like, let's see how many tracks we can get on this son bitch
bit. Okay.
before things start bogging down. Turns out a lot, a
Okay.
lot, which is
Okay.
cool. But yeah, that one I wanted to flow. I think I did it in two parts. I think I had done the beginning first by myself, and then added or mixed in the second half, which would have been the like more rockin' part
Right.
into it. Anton mapped out those drums like a son of a bitch. There were so many different like he would send me demos of the drums like while I was at work. I'd be at work. I was working night shift like 12 hours. I'd sit out in my car on my lunch break and he'd like send me drum riffs. And
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's awesome, cool, post it. And he's like, no, I don't fucking like that. No. And so it'd be like a couple more weeks. I'm like, damn, Anton, come on. Like, I can't get anything else done until this.
Until the
But
drums. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
what he came up with was this
Ooh.
very Danny Carey from Tool mapped out, written, rhythmic, almost tribal like, put you in a trance kind of drums.
It is. Oh, and he's changing it constantly.
Yeah.
Constantly. I mean, you know, and it is a very drum heavy song, but again, not in a distracting
No,
way
it
at
complements it
all.
so good.
It really does.
I
It
mean,
really
Anton's
does.
very conscious as a musician of not stepping on toes, and he's
Right.
super professional. And what I love about this band is everybody could play their asses off all of the damn time if we wanted to.
Right.
But if you orgasm right at the beginning of it, where do you go from there in your song?
Right.
Do I tell you?
Right.
No fucking where.
Right.
So we like to let's start at the beginning, and then at the end, you got your
You
climax.
guys do a lot
Everybody's
of
happy.
simmery kind of
Yeah.
slow burn build kind of what, but then even
Some of them, yeah.
but like it, but it's funny because that song, like it in the bridge,
Yeah.
there's that very bright guitar riff, very
Oh, it's like
specific.
I wonder if it's the little add-on, the
Yeah, it's a very, and it there isn't anything else like it anywhere else on the album.
right.
And then what's funny to me is that you have a moment immediately after that where there's been this very, as I said, sort of bright, unusual, distinctive guitar riff.
Right.
And then there's almost like this evanescence, bring me to life kind of chuggy guitar stuff going on immediately after that. And I loved
Okay.
how it went from, and Narak is screaming right now because I mentioned Evanescence, but it if he's awake, but so
It's 8:44.
it takes, but
Wake up,
when
people.
it broadcasts, this is it's probably like 9 something, but no, but I mean, it took me from this very sort of like, it's not chirpy. I don't mean bright in that way. I just mean it
Okay.
like it was something that really made me notice, like, okay, the guitar is really doing something specific here. And then all of a sudden there's that, whatever. And
Right.
then there's a tremendous guitar solo. And I don't know if that was
Yeah.
you or Brandon. And then
Yeah.
again, you have those dual harmony guitar lines going.
Right.
And,
Yeah,
and it's
that
just so
solo is
funny where it
Brandon.
starts the song,
Mhm.
where there's just this quietness. And again, it begins with a riff and the Vox and all that, but like the song is such a ride. Like it's just such a ride, and I mean, and then lyrically on top of that, you've got this idea about, that someone not being a perennial. Like I never thought about you not being a perennial, and just, talking about the lights going out and how, basically like, if you're gone at this point, I'm going to live louder. I'm going to live brighter. I'm going to just burn everything to
It's
the ground.
a giant fuck you to not surviving. Yeah.
That's it. And there is it's a measured anger in that, because there's a pleading to the lyrics, because this is someone that, at least in that moment lyrically, hasn't been lost yet, but it feels like an inevitability, right? It's something that is, you're essentially digging already because what's coming, but it hasn't happened yet. And there's an anger in that, but it's very quiet. And again, I feel like the music is painting all of that emotion on top of the lyrics or under it or alongside it or whatever you want to do.
Yeah, right.
And it is one of the gifts of the musicianship in this album to me, and why I consider it kind of a perfect album, that all of the things that are happening, whether it's individual instruments, whether it's the particular rhythms that you're playing with in a particular moment at a particular point in a particular song, or it's the whole of them together, because obviously these are different stories, but thematically it's very cohesive, because these are all people that you're telling stories about, these ghosts. It all enhances itself. Everything enhances everything else. And it's, it one of the very cool things about the album is that if you were not paying attention to the lyrics at all, if somebody picked it up and didn't know what the concept of the album was, or they thought it was just a fiction thing that you had put together and it wasn't what they could enjoy it just as much. Like it does, you don't have to sit there and go, okay, I know Aubrey's story, and I know, that this is what he's talking about, and that this is an album, of honors and tributes and memorials to people and whatever. You don't have to know any of that.
And honestly, that the band didn't even know that
really
this is. I think when I started doing, maybe well after it was finished, I got a little more honest, or maybe mentioned something. The times have been so hectic for everybody lately. But yeah, I don't think they really knew till far afterwards, or we'll still find out during this. Because I mean, all of them, they have a general idea. I mean, they know, but as far as the insides, like this is this person or this is that person, No, they didn't know they were signing on for all of this, basically.
Okay. Okay.
So
Okay.
the work they're given and what they've put out is doing all that without knowing the significance.
That's astounding to me
Yeah,
because it seems so intentional,
yeah,
and it really is. It's always a pleasure to listen to music that has been crafted as opposed to just recorded,
right.
and clearly everything that you guys have put down on this album is thoughtful,
Yeah.
and so the fact that now, I mean, did they have the lyrics when they were coming up with their parts for
Um,
all of the songs? Because I'm wondering if
I
that's
think
part of what
I think
guided
they're
them.
I think they're all pretty good. I like to give them lyrics anyway because I like them to see what they're playing along to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I mean, it helps them figure out where they're at in the song, but too, I take pride in my lyrics, and I want that to be
yeah.
a thing because I don't think there's enough of that in music at all today, and it's a very storytelling. Even when it's not personal, it's lacking in music and original ideas. Any of that, it's all taken a backseat to very quick, very not thought out either generic stuff
It's
or
TikTok
what's hot
music.
right
Yeah.
now.
My
Yeah,
my
yeah,
kids call it TikTok music, and that's
right on.
exactly what it is. It's meant to be scoring a like a second clip of somebody going like this or what, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And yeah. And again, I mean, look, that music has its place, and every
right.
generation does the thing of like, well, in my day we had real lyrics,
Yeah,
like, and you could
shit.
even go back to, some of the best bands ever, and even the Police, Sting, where he could write his ass off lyrically,
Yeah,
also still did have do 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 da da da, you know what I mean? So it's
yeah,
like,
right.
there's a spot for that, but you want your stuff to say something. But so I mean, so is it
Yeah.
possible that when they read the lyrics as part of, figuring out what they were going to be doing with the song, that even though they didn't understand exactly necessarily what stories you were telling, that did inform the way that they were putting down their bits, or was it just a really happy accident, do you think?
I think we have a lot of really happy accidents, but I'm sure they knew probably where I was at when I was writing some of it. But as the
Okay.
song started coming together as a whole, and then it became quite apparent to me that this is what this was,
Okay. Okay.
and this is how it flowed. But I
Okay.
mean, Temperance. I think the lyrics to it, I'm probably the most proud of. It was also the hardest thing to write because it's the most vulnerable
Right. Well, so and
lyrics.
and, and that's where we are with this now, is talking a little bit about that story. So, what about, I mean, I know the lyrics, so I
Yeah.
understand what you're saying, but what about that was particularly difficult?
Temperance's ghost is it was a very close childhood friend of mine growing up, and she was a closet alcoholic,
Mm,
and she was she was a teacher. She had a family of her own. She had kids of her own. Just role model kind of person, and hit it.
mm,
And she had went into renal failure right when I was going into rehab. We were both like admitted for the same symptoms of alcohol withdrawal as our bodies were shutting down.
right. Right.
The only difference was is I made it out. She
Mm,
did.
mm,
So temperance is survivor's guilt. It
mm,
is the most honest portrayal of survival skill and being at the absolute bottom of dealing with the reality of where you were and the outcome of it and how very fucking close
mm,
you came,
mm,
and how long will it take you to let this go, and will you be able to get past survivor's guilt. As
mm,
long as it's been, and as long as it's been since I've released the song, or like the reaction it gets out, it makes me feel better putting it out. But at the same time, it's you're very fucking aware that
mm.
you could not have been any closer to making it. I mean, what they don't tell you about severe alcoholism is your brain fucking shrinks, right?
Yeah.
And so I had spent so much time with my brain shrinking that now, 6 years later, I am still having like what I would consider severe issues with just random fucking everyday shit,
Mm.
right? And I ended up during all this, during Corona, before I'd started recording this, I'd married my high school sweetheart.
Mm.
And so when I died, she was literally the one that took me to the ER the second time. And she
Mhm.
stayed during all of it. And she didn't judge me. Building a studio and going back into the music was part of my deal for getting sober. It was to keep
Mm.
my hands busy. It
Mhm.
was to see if I could do anything with this. So like, hey, you're talented. So what can you do now?
Mhm. Mhm.
And this is all what I did now. Um, but temperance, just the vulnerability in it. There's a line in it, something along the lines. I can't remember right offhand, but wanting to trade places beneath the rubble, and that was a very heavy, very vulnerable thing to put out to it. One, to let the world hear you say that about something, how you would love to trade places, with
Yeah.
you between the rubble.
Yeah.
To be in that moment, and for those of us who have lost someone or who have came very, very close, you've had that thought of someone that I can wish I could trade places with you so I wouldn't have had to lose you. And that's you're not going to hear that on radio, and
Yeah.
but it's something that resonates with damn near all of us, and it's the
Right.
ugly side
Right.
of it.
Right.
But in order to tell her story and the severity of it and how much of an impact it was, you talked about the waiting around, the renal failure. It was the waiting around.
Yeah.
So did had passed, and we had waited and waited and waited, and that was that.
Yeah.
You realize that life becomes, you you pass away ultimately. You're a sad Facebook post for a couple of days, and then maybe once or twice a year after that,
Mhm.
and people move on.
Mhm.
And that's what this is. It's that short.
Mhm.
um, and I damn sure wanted to make sure that her story got through, even though it made me kind of worse. Made me feel worse for telling the story, because having to relive the
Yeah.
lyrics like it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
I mean, and sometimes it does get easier playing it because I'm seeing how people are enjoying it, and like the solos at the end are so kick ass.
Yeah, they really are. Yeah.
And I couldn't have picked a better send off for me musically. If somebody would have done that for me, I would have been like, "That's cool as shit,"
Mm.
like
Well,
thanks.
and I mean, I think that, I do wanna take a beat because, we've talked to, you know, JD from Death Pigeon. We've talked
Right.
to Aaron from Electric Tardigrade. We've talked to Ryan from Simple Jack. We've talked to people who have dealt with, you know, mental health issues and
Yeah.
addiction issues,
Right.
and one of the most important things that this show could do, if it does anything besides showcasing all of you and your talents, is to, and I'm going to try to say this in a way that doesn't sound self-aggrandizing, because I don't at all mean it to.
Yeah.
Because I really just, the show is a vessel for people to tell their stories, and it's about you guys and not the show. But it's that same idea of just, having seen so many people who are tremendous people,
Yeah.
who are suffering and struggling, and for whatever reasons, the way that they can cope is to not cope. It's to
Right.
use, it's to drink, it's to, to bury, whatever it is that they can't yet process in
Right.
whatever gets
Yeah.
them from day to day. And I'm thinking about your friend, and people will think, oh, okay, fine. So alcoholics, or like, the people, the single people that are just, alone in their room, whatever. And they just, no, I mean, first of all, yes, there are people like that, but this was a mother and
Yeah.
potentially a wife and a
Right.
teacher, and and nobody knew. And
Yeah.
I've heard people like that be judged. Well, how could she has children, or how could she's
Yeah.
a teacher, or whatever. And all I can think is how terrified she must have been.
Yeah.
How
The
terrified she must have been living in that, and having that dual life, and knowing
and
that it wasn't sustainable. I
and
mean,
what pisses you off more is when you realize you're in the same situation, and you know exactly what that shame feels like,
mhm.
because I don't think people understand, because it is so highly advertised. It is always on the commercials, and that doesn't mean you can't have a drink. That doesn't mean I'm telling everybody don't
No,
enjoy
no,
yourselves.
no, no.
It's saying that I had an issue with some shit, and then what
Right.
I thought was, and what, I didn't even drink in the beginning. I didn't drink until I was 24 years old.
Hmm.
I was adamantly against drinking. I had even broken up with a girlfriend once for a sip of alcohol. I had come from such a bad family. When my mom, God bless her, it goes through a divorce and you lose somebody you love, you kind of lose shit for a little bit.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
understand this now as a 40-year-old recovering alcoholic, and
But as a
now
kid, you don't.
I get that. Yeah, as a kid, you don't fucking get it. You're just pissed.
Yep.
Why are they acting this way? Blah blah blah. And
Right.
now, best relationship I've ever had with my mom. Best. But it took me dying to get to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's so advertised, you just don't see that. And when it became a physical need is when it was scary. When my body
Mm.
realized that the alcohol store was closing at 6 p.m. or whenever it was on a Sunday or
Yep.
like a Saturday, you had to get it before the next day, and you would physically go into panic
Yeah.
attacks and
Yeah.
shut down.
Yeah.
I didn't even know when I had started drinking heavily every day, it was to stop panic attacks that I were getting.
Yeah.
What I didn't know until I was in recovery is that I was having panic and anxiety attacks because it was a part of my withdrawal symptoms from fucking drinking. It was one circle that started. But once my
Mm.
body figured out, hey, if you drink for just a second, and I'm sure like some of the other artists you've had will completely understand. As soon as you start drinking, those shakes stop, you're clear headed again,
Right.
and you're having normal. Like you're fucking at
Right.
a normal. And that was
Right.
my everyday live. Like I couldn't go to the bathroom to take a piss without having a drink. And it was just that. So when you see yourself in those positions
Mm-hmm.
and you watch people being high and mighty about like, oh, how did they let it get like this, or how did they know? You don't understand the physical and the mental of what it is when you're
No.
watching your body shake and you are fucking dying.
Yep.
And the shame you feel on top of it to let anyone let you see it that way. And God forbid you have a job where you still show up that you can or you're trying to and not shake at work.
Yep. Yep.
That
Yep.
was some shit.
No,
And so yeah, like
and that
you, I take offense to it.
no, and I really, I mean, and each of the people that I mentioned are some of the best people I've ever met.
Yeah, I've been following this electric tardigrade.
Aaron, yeah, yeah,
It's the
yeah.
water bear. I learned that today too. My wife said that's a water bear.
And Aaron, I think, by the time this airs, it will be probably about 30 something days that he's sober. But yeah, he's
That's fucking
past
rad.
the 2 week mark, and so proud of him. And I mean, and again,
He's doing all the right stuff.
he isn't, and he had a similar thing of just, people judging. And I think that is
Yeah,
just so much of what is wrong,
people are
that in
fucking
society,
idiots.
that's it. It's really,
You
I
can't go
don't
off
think
people.
anyone who's ever suffered and struggled and dealt with it honestly
Yeah,
can't judge somebody else for how they get through things. It's the people who either have had charmed lives
Right.
where they're not dealing with stuff, or much
Yeah.
more frequently, I think, their, egosyntonic, systems of denial and everything
Yeah.
else are still functioning. And, they are not, they're strong because they don't deal with their stuff. They just push it
Right.
all down and bury it and whatever. And, that comes out in other ways that aren't any better than
Yeah, I mean,
addiction.
and
So,
shameful, like vulnerable moments. Do you know how Trent Reznor got sober?
no.
There was a story about, and there's two of my idols, so it's really cool because I love finding out like sobriety stories about
Yeah.
people that I
Yeah.
admire that aren't completely fuck ups or dead now. But so Trent Reznor, I want to believe I had read he had got sober after he went to a party at David Bowie's house, and he
Okay.
fucking threw up on David Bowie's couch.
Oh.
And can you imagine fucking having to explain to David Bowie how you
Why he
throw
threw up
up
on
on
his
his
couch.
fucking couch? And I think it was after that that like David Bowie had helped him get sober.
Wow. Okay,
So
that is
I
not
mean,
a
I'm
that is
like,
not a rock bottom that most people
no, man,
experience, but
no,
whatever works, right? I mean, what so I
yeah,
mean, so yeah, it really just, it's this idea of, and then we'll keep going with the songs, but like just this idea that, that I think that personalizing and humanizing things like addiction and
right,
depression and suicidal
yeah,
ideation and anxiety and, all of these issues that are so much more common than people want to believe or admit,
right,
um, you know, that just basically the message is don't be an asshole. Don't
yeah,
think that you're better than somebody because you don't have a particular addiction. How many hours are you on your phone a day? I mean,
right,
and
yeah. Those
everybody's got
addictions,
their way to, yeah,
you
to
don't see
kind of,
them,
right, and so I mean, so okay, so we come back now to the next song on the album, which is,
Mhm.
as the one that we talked about a little
Yeah,
bit
man.
earlier, my favorite, Tonight We Dine with Crows. And
Yeah,
I
man.
just, again, we've already said a bit about it, but
I really
I
like this song. This is one of my
I do
favorites, and it's
too.
Yoko's favorite too. So that
Okay.
says something because Yoko's fucking awesome.
So there you go. So guys, I mean, really, no, but I really, again, after that initial moment of that, that nutshell emotional
Yeah,
phenomenon that I described earlier, again, the song does go from being more spare and more doleful to being heavier again.
yeah,
But, you know, this one lyrically is my favorite.
thanks.
It's so, and I want to ask you about the image that
Yeah,
you got, the visual ghost that visited you on this one, because this one, I'm someone who my incredibly gifted younger one tells me has aphantasia, meaning that I can't really see things when I close
right.
my eyes. If I try to visualize them, I can't do it. And this
Oh
actually
wow.
got me to see. I know people who are like you are always like, people like you exist to me, and like I'm everything for me is
Okay.
auditory. Everything
Yeah.
is prosody and
No, I
sound and
feel
melody,
that.
whatever. But with this one, even I could get
Mhm.
an image in my head, with these lyrics about, being the queen of the lost and forgotten, and
Yeah.
and the voices, and I mean, it is. So rather than my laying my interpretation on it, talk to me
Huh.
about this ghost. Talk to me about this story.
Um. So when I had went into, I had mentioned going into the rehab
Yeah.
facility that's stuck, and part of that was a mental facility, which was this turned out not to be like I'm alive. All right. So the place it did its job. Let's say that they had good food,
Okay,
but
it's not a given,
so
certainly. So
I mean they got me to eat. I mean when you literally can't eat or drink anything
yeah.
at all, anything's good. But so I became fascinated. I was only in the maybe rehab facility. It seemed a lot longer than it was,
Mm.
and the recovery has taken even longer. But I think 5 or 6 days, something like that.
Oh wow. Okay. Very
Yeah,
short inpatient. Usually
yeah,
it's a couple weeks, 30 days, something like that.
yeah.
That's
And I had seen enough in 5 or 6 days there to where I was good. Like,
okay.
I don't need to come back here. It's all
Okay.
right. I don't want to drink no more.
Okay.
It's cool. So tonight we dine with crows is about one of the patients there, and she was a younger patient, and I was really infatuated um, with her. Um, they did not separate the mental patients from the patients who were just trying to fucking detox from alcohol.
Okay.
So when I
Interesting
go in this
choice. Okay.
place, yeah, so when I go in this place, and I don't know because I'm leaving from the ER immediately to here, I
Right.
don't get a toothbrush, I don't get clothes, nothing. I'm like what I've probably been wearing all week is what I was in Riyadh. And anyway, so they like cut the hood off my hoodie, take my belt, take my shoestrings out of my boots, and I'm like, well, this is fucking inconvenient as shit. That was my
Right.
favorite hoodie. And they're
Yeah.
like, well, in case you kill yourself. And I'm like, I'm here for fucking alcohol.
Right.
And
Just
they're like,
take the
well,
string. Yeah.
sorry, man.
Yeah.
So you were right there with them. I mean, you shared cigarettes with them, and it was all various types of it. But there was one girl in particular who was a schizophrenic, but she would go into these delusions of where she would look off. And when
Mm.
she would look off, the staff and people there would tell you not to look in the direction she was looking
Okay.
because that affirmed it. That made it even more real because
Right.
now you're seeing what she's seeing.
Right. Okay.
And I was so obsessed with what it was that she was seeing.
Hmm.
So, what I wanted to do in the song, I very vaguely told her that if I ever get out of this place and if I can stay sober, and more specifically, if I can stay sober, I want to write about you. And I'm going to make you what I think you see in your head
Mm.
when you're going off into,
Mm.
you know. So that's who the Queen became about. And tonight we dine with crows. So it's two people speaking, really.
Yeah.
It's a doctor asking questions.
Okay.
When you sew up
Okay.
your eye, if you were to sew up your eyes, is that when they come for you?
Right.
It's are you really seeing things, or are you okay? So it's the doctor talking to her, and the other half of it is what she's saying. She is the queen of the lost and forgotten,
Hmm.
and so I made her just to be out this grandiose queen.
Mm.
And so that was the image I got with her, and
And the
so
and the
it was a
crows,
promise.
the crows are, because I
The
almost
crows are,
imagined like that as part of like this big elaborate tea party almost of her,
yeah,
hosting this.
right.
Okay.
You could, yeah. It's that similar. It works very well. Crows have always been a fascination of mine. It, Brandon and I both really loved the movie The Crow when it came out, and
Mm.
Brandon Lee is,
Yeah.
Brandon Lee Gaines.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean,
Yeah.
we really loved the movie and the story behind it. And finally, there was like a movie or a superhero movie for people like us,
Hmm.
like the weird cure kids who liked Robert Smith and shit like that. But it was romantic, but it was awesome because we had felt that kind of loss. So that movie had
Mm.
resonated with us. And so really it's kind of what we've done in musical form. So I always like to keep crows in there. It's our logo.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
and in crows, carry the souls of the dead. So
Right.
what better,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
So that
Um,
that that was the specific image that you got in your head writing this for her was what you thought she was seeing?
yeah.
And what
So
was that?
so
I
in
mean,
it,
it's,
it's so in it, yeah. Kind of the almost like a Red Queen, Alice in Wonderland Tea
okay.
Party kind of
Okay.
thing. So yeah,
Okay.
you are kind of dead on in that.
That came
And
across.
like
Yeah, no, it did.
even the ending when I did the ending with like it's not a electronic, but I do, and I'd really love some of the artists you've had on here like Electric Terrorgrade, all that, who are specifically like work with the DJ stuff and the
Yeah, the
electronic
EDM music.
field.
Yeah,
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 like
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
really curious
Yeah.
to hear what
Mm.
they are gonna think about like me putting some of this stuff in there and
Mm.
the
Mm.
sonic textures and maybe get some advice on it.
Yeah. Oh,
I
yeah.
love hearing how people make shit.
No, the
And
more you all work together and talk to each other, the better, the more good music
yeah,
we're gonna get. So I love that idea. So Aaron, you gotta hook up with
yeah, man,
Aubrey, and maybe you
yeah.
could talk to
Let me
Star
know.
Uni too. She's another one who does that
Awesome.
that
Yeah,
that kind of those kind of soundscapes and everything. But so no,
yeah. So
that one that really, I mean, that song, and instrumentally again, having talked about the nutshell, the end though, the even the instrumentation is very emotional, especially in the
yeah,
back half of that song, and
right.
the solo is not super intricate. It's almost more mournful, but
Yeah,
Anton again is building this drum rhythm, and there's this tension in it
yeah.
that as it's building and it's quickening, and that song, I think, for me, one of the tightest examples of dynamics on
Oh,
the
thanks.
album. There's just so much in there, and it really, it all just works together so well for me. And I really, that's, like when I interviewed Death Pigeon JD, and talked about, his rewiring of humanity, the album there,
Right.
and the story behind that, and it sticks with me, and it's been months now since I
Yeah,
read it, and it still sticks with me. I still think of it,
that's really cool.
weekly at least. And I feel like Tonight We Dine with Crows is going to be another one of those for me. There's something specifically about the eyes sewn shut, and that it's just such a,
Yeah,
and I think it's because, in my head, I go from that to like, ragdoll images with the
yeah,
button eyes, and, and
right.
there's so much packed into that, that there's that. And it's interesting that she's young, the
Yeah.
woman that you met, and it's funny how much of this at a gloss, not knowing the story that you've translated or conveyed into it. And
Yeah.
and economically, the lyrics are not leading us through very
Mm,
specifically, but it's funny because I feel like I got from it exactly what you wanted. And that
yeah.
isn't
Yeah.
down to
You're
like, oh, I'm some kind of a genius. I think you've put that across very well,
and
and you've done it very cleanly.
I
So
I really love when people and they don't do it often, but when if they want to let me know, like I think this is about this, you're the only person that has gotten the ballpark on pretty much
really,
the majority of my stuff. Yeah, especially on Tonight We Dine with Crows. Because who's gonna know it's about a schizophrenic? Nobody. I mean, but
no,
it's yeah, but
that was the first thing,
the
because I mean, first of all, the second you
the
talk about
imagery,
hearing voices, that's what I think
yeah,
of. But I'm a weird chicken. I'm a psychology background and all that too. So maybe that's why.
nice,
But I also think it's probably because most people aren't necessarily sitting down and closing their eyes and listening to your album so carefully.
right,
The people who are watching the show right now, and let's say hi to Rob and Freaky Things, and and
right,
Jamsteak, and Angela and everybody, but like
yeah,
they're gonna go listen to it like that, and so
right, yeah,
more people will
and that's
will
awesome.
get
Like,
it. But yeah, and I think I just, again, I love the whole album, but that song, guys, if you're only gonna listen to one besides the one that we've played, The Broken and the Damned, start with Tonight We Dine with Crows, because I think that will make you want to listen to the rest of the album anyway. And it's
yeah,
so poignant, and there's something so eerie and haunting, and kind of, I get this vacant feeling from it, this
yeah.
just,
When I did the solo, that was my solo on it, and I think it was the only solo I've ever like mapped out like as a guitarist because all this again still very new to me.
right.
So, this is the only time I've ever mapped out anything, but Anton gives you this push and pull. So that dynamic is very Smashing Pumpkins, Siamese Dream,
Yep,
that build
yep,
up
yep,
between the
yep, yep.
drums and the guitars and the split power chords and that holding last note. Like we learned all that from, or when I write
Yeah.
stuff,
And even
Billy
the
Corgan,
orchestral elements, and
yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
No,
we pull a lot from them, yeah.
no, but that's it's just a great song. It really is. So okay, so then you
Mhm.
move into Solace of Mania,
Yeah,
which is different again.
it
Like
is.
that's a very different, and I mean, obviously, you know, um it's right there in the title. But I mean, again, that I feel like that's probably to me the hardest song on the album.
Like heaviest? Or?
Yeah, like yeah,
Okay.
just it's not that they're not all, not that any of them is soft by comparison, but there's something very guitar is super sludgy, extra sludgy
Yeah,
on that one, and
so good.
it's the drumming is a little bit more, a little bit harsher, a little bit
Yes.
more in your face. And again, I get a big Alice in Chains
Yeah.
vibe from that one. And I felt like the guitar solo at the end of that was kind of evocative of like an 80s hair metal kind of. It had that squealy, like and I mean that in a good way because I love that stuff, but like it had that, it was more playful in a way.
Okay. Yeah.
Than maybe some of the other ones, and it had an element that was a little bit more unrestrained than what I generally associate with like a grunge type
Right.
solo or song. But
So
yeah, so lyrically with that one, well, what were you going to say? Were you going to talk about instrumentation or lyrics? Or?
yeah, so I'll go with instrumentation because this one is 100% Brandon.
Okay.
And when I had started Wormwood, I had just started it. I had stopped writing music in high school, and I was like, you know what? Maybe I'm not getting anywhere by the time I'm 18. Surely this is never going to happen. So
Okay.
I just stopped playing music, but somebody had got me Jeff Buckley's Grace, and it changed my life. So I started writing all the shit.
Yeah.
So
Such an amazing album. Yeah.
so I had just started writing these acoustic songs, and when I met Brandon in high school, Brandon was very much into like Misfits, punk rock, like I was, and then
Okay.
but he was also super into Megadeth. Now Megadeth was a heavier band that I could like because Dave Mustaine knows how to write a chorus, and I am all about writing a catchy chorus that you can
Yep.
remember.
Yep.
So we had this love of what if we put like kind of metal stuff over like Concrete Blonde or like
Yeah.
and because Concrete Blonde kind of gothy, kind of where we're at, if they were, Jonette Napolitano is one of my favorite lyricists as well.
And yeah, between the lyrics and the voice, she's an absolute gift.
One
Yeah.
of my favorites.
Yeah.
So I copy a lot from her. I mean, even Tori Amos, but
yeah.
So the solos and all that, Brandon is just an excellent guitarist, and part of what I love about, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, is that your progression as a musician. What I love about them now is the amount that they can restrain. They can play absolutely anything they want to.
Yeah.
They're just not doing it all the time.
That's right.
Like there's no need for that. So, I mean, Brandon can go back to playing the stuff he did, when he was in his 20s, whether, maybe he thinks he can't, but what he brings now is this tasteful, held back. He's listening to everyone play, and it's cohesive together. So, I mean, it might not seem impressive to him, like as, a 20-year-old guitarist going like, it's not a whole lot of, but it's tasteful as shit. And we are able to add all these layers on top of stuff because of the restraint. And that's super important in getting that huge sound that we get.
That's right. No, and it's like the R&B divas, that will sit there and you don't need to be like happy birthday. Like you don't need all the runs. You don't. And I do think that is something that generally, unless you're like a Johnny Lang or somebody who's kind of preternaturally mature musically or whatever.
Yeah.
Generally, when you're younger, you don't edit yourself. It's sort of all the gymnastics. What can you throw at the wall? What can you do?
Because you want everybody to see what you can do.
That's it. But the ear gets tired of that.
Yeah, it does.
and also, as you said, if everything is going to work together, there's no way, nobody wants to watch 15 people juggling 40 items at the same time in front of them. Like nobody wants to see that. It's like, dude, just show me an elephant for a second going real slow by here, and then I can appreciate the juggler again. It's too much. So he does, and I mean, so instrumentally, that was very much him in terms of the guitar specifically. I guess you're mentioning Solace of Mania, or
Yeah, Solace of Mania. And Brandon would bring me guitar, so he had everything mapped out. This is the dun,
Mm,
dun, 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 and this is
yeah.
this, and then we would just learn that. And then so I had to
Oh
learn
wow.
that
Okay.
as a guitarist who doesn't technically one use my pinky. This is a useless digit. Like I always consider myself more of like a blues player. Like I something in it. I guess the emotive of making it a guitar sound like it's singing, like
Singing.
an
Yeah.
old R&B
Yeah.
singer
Yeah. Yeah.
doing
Yeah. Yeah.
runs. When you can do that, like Derek Trucks, and do it flawlessly, that
Oh
right
man.
there is guitar
There's a
playing.
moment in Midnight in Harlem, I think it
Yeah.
is, where I always forget that it isn't Susan Tedeschi singing, and it's always
Right?
his guitar. It's that,
Oh,
and yeah,
it's
there's
so damn
that's
good.
so sexy to me that I
Oh,
love
so
that
good.
so much. Yeah,
And
yeah,
I bought his slide just for that very reason. So I'm like, I'm gonna learn this. But
yeah,
it's part of the
yeah.
cool being sober thing too. Is now I just give myself all these new tasks to learn, which is all annoying
That's
for my
right.
wife probably. But I mean, fuck, I'm learning shit.
I'm gonna guess it's less annoying than watching you die and having to
Yeah, it
go back. So
is.
she's
It
probably okay
fucking
with it,
is.
Aubrey. If you had to 50-50 it for her,
Yeah,
I think with
I don't know.
with buying the slide. But so okay,
Yeah.
so and then so for Solace of Mania, what's the who's the ghost there? What was the because I mean you're talking about demons and rabbit holes and that you're wasting light and it's a very visual there has to be an image that's or a series of images there that's quite detailed for you because again you're
Yeah.
describing it very clearly. So what's that one about?
Solace of Mania.
Great title, by the way.
Yeah, that was Brandon too. Look at him. He's
Good job,
Brandon.
Brandon.
He does good stuff.
Yay,
Yeah, that
Brandon.
was all Brandon. I just did the lyrics for it. The lyrics were about myself. It was about the. Have you ever seen the movie? This is the best image I could give you to go along with this, right?
Okay.
So there's a movie that I really do love called 13 Ghosts. Have
Okay.
you ever
I
seen
don't know
13
it.
Ghosts? It's got the Tony Shalhoub in it.
I
It
loved anything that
like
has
I think
Monk in
it's
it. I'm a big
Vincent Price.
fan.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so Monk was in it. This interview is so good. All right, so Monk is in it. Gonna love Monk. All
Oh
right,
yeah.
Monk is
Oh
in
my
it,
God.
but
JD's watching. JD loves Monk too. So
yeah, Monk's awesome. But not to give away the movie, but
please
like,
don't.
all right, so well, I can't tell you, but
Oh,
so unrelated to what the song's about, then the 13th, not 13th ghost, but the ghost in this one would technically be myself, I guess.
okay.
It was about the writer going crazy from his stories from all of the ghosts.
So for you, for Solace of Mania, you're getting this image of. I mean, again, are you literally seeing rabbit holes? Are you literally
It's the rabbit hole is metaphorical. It
right?
was it
Right.
was the going crazy part. It's
Okay.
the me being the writer of it. All the ghosts kind of come back and and claim me
Okay.
as one of their own. So it's me
Okay.
going mentally crazy, which was really part of after the recovery. We had talked about the brain growing back, right?
Right.
So what they don't tell you when that happens is kind of pushes on parts of the brain, but certain
Mm.
memories would activate or things I hadn't thought about, but I would have the reaction as to if it was just happening right then. So I would have that physical response
Oh
to
wow.
it. And it had been going on for quite a while during the recovery. And it was really hard not to like let people know that stuff like this affects you and you don't know how to explain it.
So
Um,
you were
like,
keeping that all to yourself? What was
yeah.
happening? Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, and especially like either dealing with something at work or something would come up, and it was just part of how my brain was growing. Like I've had to reteach myself damn near everything. Like I've never been this out. I've never been this vocal. Part of our thing with the band was this mystery. So I would never tell you what the songs were about. I would
Mm,
absolutely never tell you what the image was because
mm,
it didn't matter what the fuck it was about. It was about what it meant to you. Right
right.
at that moment, what that song meant to you is what
Right.
that song was about,
Right.
which is great in theory, but I had heard Chris Cornell's solo album,
Mm.
Euphoria Morning.
Mm.
And there is a song on it called When I'm Down.
Okay.
And that song changed my life. And there was lyrics in it that just, it was one of the few times in my life I had heard something at a perfect moment with
Mm.
friends. It had came on, something in it grabbed me, and that no other song really has done it to me since then.
Wow.
But when I had heard it, I thought, I want to make at some point in my career an album that will give somebody that feeling, but I
Mm.
want every song to have that.
Mm.
And
Mm.
it's a beautiful song. It's one of the
Yeah,
I
I'll
love
have
it. It's one
to.
of my
Yeah,
favorite of
I'll have
his.
to
It's
go
just like
listen.
him and a piano. There's even a song for Jeff Buckley on there called Wave Goodbye. And Chris Cornell sings in this very, very Jeff Buckley like falsetto that is very noticeably Buckley
Oh
to pay
wow. Okay.
homage to the minute.
I
Yeah,
wonder if
it's
that's
really
like
good.
a last goodbye reference to,
It is.
maybe, but so
Yeah,
okay,
it
so I
is.
mean, so you've decided that it's funny that we're talking about it with this song too, because you
Mhm.
do use the line, I've been wasting light, which is such a
Yeah.
great way to talk about, because everybody talks about wasting time, but
Mhm.
and what I'm hearing with that is that you heard something that made you realize that anything that you were keeping in shadow was part of what was keeping you sick,
Right.
and I mean, so that this whole project becomes about shining a light on the things that people want to keep hidden away,
Right.
and
Yeah.
and it is an incredibly brave thing to do, and it's because look, I mean, there are probably albums out there where people are talking about very personal things and whatever, but
Yeah.
they're not necessarily great music that everyone's going to want to listen to. So, I mean, you have
Okay.
the huge safety net of also just really good, very listenable music that, as we said, if nobody, including
Yeah.
the band, knew exactly what the album or the songs were about, it wouldn't take
Technically,
away
yeah.
from the experience. But like
Right.
it is it's and I think it sounds like the way that you really got the courage to do that was because you felt this responsibility to these ghosts to tell this
Yeah.
story. And so if for you it's a way to kind of back into it, almost that it's
It is.
personal but it's not as personal. And so okay, so then that leads us then to the last song.
Yes.
And this is the only one where you have a featured vocalist who is not in the
Yep.
band. So this is
Right.
a Keening the Hollows
Yeah.
and Miss Tiff,
Yeah.
throwing
Uh,
down the vocals on this too.
so good. So
So I
good.
mean, this was the Jeff Buckley one for me. This is
Really?
the one,
Thanks.
yeah, this
I
is the
didn't try it
one
feeling
where,
that way, but
because
I'm
it
going to take that as the best compliment I've ever gotten in anything.
okay, well there you
Thanks,
go. I
man.
will say it again then. Let's hammer that home. This was
Yeah.
the Jeff Buckley one for me, and I
Thanks.
really, some of it was the very ethereal kind of slow intro there. It had
Yeah.
that you and I feel, it had that
Yeah.
that Buckley haunting, gorgeous tension kind of thing. And
Yeah.
then you've guys, this one, it is, and again, I mean, like, how do you even pick? But like this
This
one,
is our
I think,
biggest sounding one,
well, and
I
that's it.
think.
This one, I think, really kind of blows the doors off of exactly what you guys can do, because there is a lot of restraint
Yeah.
in the previous 5 songs. And yes, you have a song like Bound that, as we said, starts off very fast, very kind of punk. You have, Anton just throwing in all this, insanely intricate drumming throughout, and then these dueling melody lines and everything on the guitars and all that. But this one, it starts you off, it lullabies you, it kind of brings you in, it's quiet, you're not quite sure, and then boom, it just fucking kicks you in the face with these
It
guitars
does.
and
Yeah, man.
and the drums, and you're going to think this is the weirdest comparison, but I happen to think they're tremendous musicians, so this is not as weird a
All right.
comparison as you might think. There was almost a deliciously Tenacious D
I
vibe
fucking love it.
to the
Really?
guitars on this.
Oh,
And
dude.
and in those moments where you're listening to the D and you're going, God, they're fucking hilarious. And then you
Right?
have a moment where you're like, You're
But they're
really
really fucking
good.
good musicians.
Really are. I mean, Kyle is classically
Kyle is,
trained, right? And like,
yeah,
and they know what
super
they're
good.
doing. And it has
Yeah,
that, like, some of it is just the fact that it was the dual guitars and the harmonics
I'll take
and all
it.
that. But I mean, so we start off with this very kind of ghostly
Yeah.
intro. We
Mhm.
come into this squealing, like hard fucking right, as I said, boot to the face thing. And then you're not even done. You're still
No.
going to settle
Yeah.
into more of the grungy kind of, heavier, slower thing. And one of the things that I loved about the choice with the vocals with Miss Tiff is
Mhm.
that she is octaving you, right?
Yes.
You're not doing harmonies on that.
Right.
And it works for me in a way where it makes it sound ghostly is not the word that I want, but there's
We use
something
haunting a lot, so I just
yeah, I mean that could work,
yeah.
but there's something very sort of the good version of creepy about it,
Okay.
because
I'll
there's
take
this
it.
very pretty,
Mhm.
female voice, which is the only
Yeah.
time we hear that on the album.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then you've got your baritone underneath that, and it makes it sound like, when you're alone in a house and there's like a music box that's winding down and it
Right.
kind of has that slightly creepy thing, but it's still pretty. That was
Yeah.
kind of the feel that I got from that.
I like
And I
that.
mean, then we're
Awesome.
talking about like I'm even getting like November Rain, Guns N' Roses kind of
Yeah,
like super dramatic
that's cool.
orchestral kind of but
I'll take that.
heavier than
Yeah.
that, right? So I mean this song is all over the place, but in a
Yeah.
very planned,
Mhm.
controlled, cohesive kind of way. And
Yeah.
it seems like such a tour de force to me that there
Mhm.
might have been a moment of the band of going, you know what, let's just show everybody what we can do. Let's take the roof off of this
Yeah.
and just turn it into this thing. And I mean, it's again, I think what I like about that choice, if it was there, or maybe it just happened that way, is that to me the fundamental message of the lyrics on this one
Mm.
is, you know, even knowing that someone is lost and even feeling like you're helpless to save them, this idea of, don't give in. It's a warning, it's a
Yeah.
plea, it's a warning.
Mhm.
And it just, the fact that the instrumentation is so volatile, and
Right.
so changeable, again, as you've done in other songs, I feel like it
Mhm.
really pushes that message home. So talk to me about this one, because this is a very different song for the album.
Yes. Keening the Hollows was the very last thing we had done, and I probably finished mastering it the day of putting it on Spotify, something
Oh
like that.
wow.
Because you
Okay.
still got like 2 weeks before Spotify puts your shit on there, so you still got to
Okay.
wait. But it's
Okay.
like, so we did that. Tiff just Tiff was 2 hours away from us, or she was a good while. She was like on the border of Alabama or something.
Okay.
So it wasn't. I would have loved to had her in the same room, and I just took a shot. She sings, and this is cool as shit, for a band called Elzig,
Okay.
and Elzig is the demon Elvis. Now, the demon Elvis
Okay.
also sings Danzig songs.
Okay. Because
So
I
it's
mean that's what it
Elzig.
sounds like. Okay.
Yes,
Elvis.
and it's fantastic.
So it's a demon Elvis that sings Danzig songs.
Well, yeah, Danzig and Elvis songs.
Yeah. Okay.
They're uh-huh. Yeah, he's got the cape and
Uh-huh.
everything, and it's fun.
Oh
Yes,
my god.
it's so good. It's so good. But she sings. She
I
is the
have a
vocalist.
feeling a bunch of people are looking them up
Google
right
it.
now.
Go
Yeah,
ahead
because
and look up
talk about
Elzig.
compelling description. Okay. E L
Look up
Z I G.
Elzig. Yes, Elzig, the demon Elvis. You will see him. And Miss Tiff. If you look them up, they do a fantastic job. It's really well thought out and just fucking brilliant. Um, And yeah, so they'll
So
be
you
playing.
just took a shot and reached out to her, and
I took a shot and reached out to her. I had always wanted a female singer on a song.
mm,
I thought it would work well with my voice,
mm-hmm,
and I wanted somebody specifically. I really love Janice or Janice-like qualities,
mm,
bluesy singers. And
mm-hmm,
when I started talking to Tiff, I had sent her my vocals and just like a rough thing, like I sent the band, and I'm like, "But here's my idea. I just need you to sing like a lower and a higher, and then I'm gonna do a lower and a higher, and then we're just one by one gonna keep stacking it till the
mm-hmm,
end, so it's like six of us, and it's gonna be awesome."
mm-hmm.
And I'm like, kind of forgive my vocal, like I know like you're an awesome singer and all that. And she is like classically trained and is actually a music teacher. And when she would send me this stuff, it was like super perfect sounding. And I could tell when she sent me in her vocals, I'm like, every note is dead on. And it's a fucking demo. Like every note, I'm like, I'm going to need you to slur some words, something.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
used
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
exact
Needs
stuff
to be a
she
little
sent.
dirtier than that. Yeah, yeah.
I used the exact demos she sent me and just cleaned those up.
Wow.
And so we literally worked all the parts like that. I had the song was going to be important because I got the lyrics first, but the music was it just kind of flowed sort of things because I had some ideas and some hopeful ideas like
Mm,
Miss Tiff
mm,
that happened to work out.
mm.
Um, so that one was kind of all me
Yeah.
putting that one together. That lyrics to this one I think are equally as important, or if not more important than Temperance.
And
But the,
talk about those a bit, because again, I think it's a very it was a very smart choice to end the album on this song, both
yeah,
musically and lyrically.
I mean, this was also us finding out one what we could, how far I could push this equipment we got, and this one was really what I wanted to max everything out on. And man, it's so I was like, just I want to see what I could pull off. One, as a musician, and then two, you have to learn how to produce and mix and master that many things going on and it not be muddy.
Yep.
So everything has to have very little importance, but it all has to be equal. So at the end of it, it's very, very big and not overbearing. And
It's
I
very
mean,
hard.
I played pianos at the end of it, and that was something I'd always wanted to do on my stuff was just like random little piano samples I put in there of the strings and the cellos, of course, and then Tiff. I wanted to make it as big as I could because it was important. I After I got sober, I started getting better, started working on myself, and all this is quite recently. I married my high school sweetheart. I had looked for her for literally 10 years after we had got out of high school and we had broken up. And I'd looked for her every day on social media, right?
Aw.
It's one of those people that just make an impact on you. And I was like, clearly I gotta find. So no shit, I looked every day for like 10 years, no matter what I was doing. If I was in a relationship, if I was drunk, if I was sober, if I was just missing her, if whatever. And I would look for her, and she didn't have an internet. So just one day 10 years later she had popped up on like Facebook, and I was like, her. So
I must marry you now because I've been looking for you for
yeah, so we had started back dating where we had left off, and she didn't know anything about like kind of what I had become and how bad of an alcoholic I'd gotten, or even that I had started drinking or anything like
Mm,
that. It's been 10 years, how much
mhm.
damage you can do in 10 years to yourself.
Oh
A
yeah.
lot. So, I mean, she was just kind of willing to go along on this ride because, like she said, look, I've been in love with you literally half my life. So when you find somebody like that, there's really a payment that you have to pay. You see your importance finally in somebody else that is willing to stay and not and give up. And because anybody else being put in that position of either
Mm,
taking care of a fiance who was, although still working,
yeah.
literally dying,
Yeah.
or walking away and saying, this is too much, fuck this, you know
Yeah.
what, let me just save myself and self-preservation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's go over it. She could have easily done that. So I mean, I'd spent the time in the rehab and got out, and she's dealt with all, the brain injuries or working through it, and then watching me climb back and rediscover art and rediscovering how to do all this. And it's very frustrating probably to have to bear with somebody this much, whether it's telling me something 5 million times or getting frustrated. I know she has to breathe, but a lot of goods come out with it. So you start to see your importance, and you do want to start working on yourself more.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a big thing, just having that support. So we ended up getting her son, who ended up being 15, living with us at the time, and he had had a very not easy life.
Okay.
Uh, and from the childhood I had had and everything, like, I resonated. And it was a warning for him. A keening was, or the Hollows was a warning for him.
Mm-hmm.
And it was what not to become, what
Mm.
not to turn out as. Um, you know, both of our families have had family members. We both come from stock where you kind of get these parts of these conditions, from parent, you get these addictions and shit.
Yep.
And
Yep.
you
Yeah.
don't, it was my warning to him to please be careful and not
Mm.
turn out like how you could easily turn out.
Mm.
A keening, the very beginning, is honestly a goodbye to my brother who is battling addiction. And when I had wrote it, it's why I kept the vocals breathy.
Mm.
When I found out what I found out about a severity of his issue, um, I the only thing I could think to do was I have to write down what I'm thinking, and I wanna I want to release it as if you'll never hear it, like it's not important.
Mm.
So I wanted to keep what you hear in the vocals, the emotion in there is the first take after I find out something traumatic that broke my heart. And I
Oh,
kept it
wow.
in there. I didn't give a shit that some of it was off and that some notes were weird or there might be a chair creaking in it.
I
It
didn't
was
notice
the
any of
fact,
that. I didn't
it's
notice
that
any of it.
when you can hear my voice break in a whisper, it's authentic. So
Mm.
it went in from an almost a goodbye to uh, what I knew of a person
Mm.
who was my best friend,
Mm.
who's still around but existing. It was a goodbye to that, and it was damn sure a warning as this new role of importance of please try not to fuck up this kid's life any worse
Mm.
than he's already
Mm.
dealt with his demons. And you're probably going to fuck up, and he did. But this is a warning for him, even though you don't know him at all. And he
Mm.
stayed with us for a while. But it was I care enough about you to know that there are parts of this place that you don't go near. And that became the Hollows. That became the thing of
That's
please
okay.
watch after yourself.
Okay. That I mean that there's so much synchronicity in that. There's so much just the idea of saying goodbye to kind of a living ghost,
Yeah,
and then trying to keep someone from becoming a ghost or heading in a
right.
direction where they could become a ghost.
Yeah,
And, brother and, father son type of thing, and just all of
right.
there's a lot rolled into that, Aubrey. Like there's a lot.
Yeah,
And I think that I did not know that about the vocals. I'm so
yeah,
glad you made that choice, because it is a keening, and
yeah,
I think it would have been less, it would have not made the song what it was if you had prettied it up and done multiple takes.
It
And
wouldn't have been honest. It would have
yeah,
been the least honest thing I could have done is polish that up and make it pretty. And the fact that the voice breaks in a whisper, and the fact that, and it was what I loved about Tori Amos's vocals is she does this super close, breathy
yes,
whisper,
yes.
and I love that. And
I mean, I'm thinking of Winter. I'm thinking
yeah,
of,
exactly.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that was one of my favorite Tori songs, and it's
yeah.
honestly where I get that whisper at, and just being a baritone, it sounds so cool to be that close to the mic.
Hmm.
But part of where I'd got the idea from that, even though that was something I wanted to have on there, was when I found out David Bowie was doing Black Star, they didn't edit his vocals.
Mm.
So when you listen to his straight vocal tracks, you're hearing the man's last breaths when
Yeah,
he's gasping. They didn't cut that.
mm,
They left all of it. And
mm.
that is some of the most chilling part of that. If you don't know the story of David Bowie's Black Star,
Yeah.
definitely look it up.
No,
Because as a
yeah,
musician, it will blow your mind that he was able to pull this off
yeah,
and
yeah,
dying.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that was the coolest thing. But just to have those vocals like that, I felt like that made it the most honest, sincere thing, although vulnerable. Still, because of the subject matter,
Yeah.
the message and the warning was greater than my vulnerability.
Well, and it's an interesting place in the road to leave things where you are
Yeah,
looking backward at your brother and you're looking
right,
forward at your stepson,
right,
and the journey that they're each on, and then the directions that they're taking, and that.
right.
So I mean, it just, I don't, as much as I prep for these interviews, I don't plan them at all,
Right, yeah,
because I feel like the the people I'm talking to will tell me what the interview is supposed to be. And I didn't realize that I was going to want to go song by song with you until we started doing it here. But I'm so glad that we did, because, I could have asked you things like, your influences, but we got
yeah,
to that. I could have
yeah,
asked you things about, how you all got together specifically, and we got to a little of that, whatever. But
yeah,
I think that this particular album needed to be, I was going to use the word dissected. That's not a great
yeah.
choice given the
Well,
subject matter.
but
It needed to
it,
be looked at in a more granular way. It needed to be discussed more specifically, because it is another way to honor these people.
right,
And it also, their stories help you tell your story.
right,
I'm so interested to see what Wormwood Project does next. So, I mean, I know
yeah.
that you are in, just
I
before
am as
we
well.
wrap this up, like, I know that you are in a moment of breath and pause and
Yeah,
space, somewhat, where you've
I
just put
am.
out an album a couple of months ago, and all of
Yeah,
that. But, I'm assuming you're always writing. I'm assuming you're always, do you have a sense of where
yeah.
the next album will go?
I've I've been thinking about it recently because, like you said, it doesn't song. When you're a musician, and you genuinely just care, and this is your life, and not a hobby. This is what you're gonna do. When you're not doing anything else,
Mm-hmm.
um, you're always gonna have music going through your head. I still have stories. Um, my wife had put something in perspective, and I didn't think about it, but I think it's of importance. And she said, ghost, that's six people. I was like, yeah, it's six people's stories. It's like, but how many more of those EPs could you make that were ghosts because of how many people you've
Mm-hmm.
lost?
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until then I realized really part of why my brain had acted like it did, and reasons for the depression. It's people will hear the album, and yeah, that's great, and they'll get something from it, and I really hope something resonates, either a lyric or a sound or something that you like. that means something to you, like Chris
Mm-hmm.
Cornell's song meant to me.
Mm-hmm.
I hope people get that from it. But what they're not going to see, especially without hearing the story, is think of the severity of how, and the severity of the weight of knowing that I could fill 3 or 4 full more EPs of stories of ghosts who are equally or not damn near more important,
Mm-hmm.
not only to my center story, but could be beneficial to others as well.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
could feel the weight of that is difficult to deal with. So do I want to put out another ghost? Could I do a 2 and 3 year? Yeah, I could. Will they come out naturally? Probably some of them. Like I
Right.
said, that when I get the pictures, those are
Right.
still my ghosts. I'm still haunted by them until I finish it, and then it goes
Right.
away. So
Right.
there'll still be that. I think there's still things to touch on, and Brandon and I have been kind of working, and then he's been writing, and that's awesome.
Okay.
And so we have some ideas with stuff, and it's adjacent to it. It's
Okay.
another flavor, but same. I mean, it's still going to be heavier in subject matter, but it still is going to deal with important ghosts, I guess, just a different name.
Well, and I mean, I think the thing is that it is part of the work of the people who remain
Right.
is to figure out how to honor those ghosts and carry them with them without it being a burden or a shroud or a heaviness. And
Yeah.
you go and you visit someone at the cemetery or whatever. Eventually you have to leave. You
Yeah.
don't stay there.
Right.
If you stay there, you might as well be underground instead of above it, right? And so
It's
part
the
of your
balance.
yeah,
It's the
it is
balance
it
that
is a
I'm trying to
balance.
work on now.
And that's it. And I think that you clearly have such a sense of debt to the people who there but for the grace of God, so to speak,
Yeah.
that you lost. And I think another part of your healing and your process is going to be understanding that it's okay for your music to be other things, for you to be
Right.
other
Yeah.
things, for you to to be honoring those ghosts and telling those stories and carrying that with you, but to keep you sober and to keep you making music
Yeah.
and to keep you happy. And so I think just leave room for images that aren't haunted. Leave
Yeah.
room for things that come to you that you can write about and see that are joyful, because you
Right.
deserve that, Aubrey. You've earned that.
Yeah.
And what you've done here, it's such a beautiful gift to the people that didn't make it, but
Right.
you did. You are. And
Yeah.
there's a lot to celebrate in that too. And just musically, you guys are a force of nature. And I think that
Thanks.
whatever you go to next, it's going to end up being exactly what it needs to be, whatever that
Yeah.
looks like. So
Exactly.
I just can't wait for it. I'm really, I know I have to,
Yeah.
but
I,
I hope it
well,
won't
I
be
mean,
too
that's
long.
the thing with technology nowadays is, in ending on that note, but we had always really just wanted to release just an album, and how things are going now, and I'm sure your guest talked about it too. Now it's just singles and singles and singles
Yeah.
in that. So I do like the idea of being able to put something out for people to continually hear, and at
Yeah.
the end of it, then that as a whole is something like
Right.
Ghost would be.
Right. Right.
So I mean, we're going to be, yeah, we're going to be working on that.
Well, and
So
maybe you've just kind of given a little bit of an answer to it, that maybe the next album that you work on is something more like a thematic thing, like a ghosts, and then you release these singles that are standalones, they're, and then maybe that later becomes a different album. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it sounds like being
We'll
prolific is
see
not
where
a
it goes.
problem that you guys have to worry about between you
Right.
and Brandon. So, but
You do all right, man.
okay.
You
So
do all right.
it feels very strange to go from that conversation to this, but
Do it.
as you know, we end every show with a segment we call In the Vox Seat.
All right.
So I'm going to ask you the same 5 questions I ask everybody,
All right.
and let's see how it goes. So
All right.
if you had to, and I think you have, but if you
Yeah.
had to sum up Wormwood Project's music in 5 words or less, what would you say?
Honest storytelling. Haunting.
Okay.
I don't know.
Honest, haunting storytelling. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. 3. That's it. He's a lyricist, folks, but he's
I'm a
going to do it in
lyricist,
3
man.
words.
I am.
Okay. All right. So then this I'm interested because we haven't really gone anywhere near it, but what is your favorite thing about being a musician?
I don't know. Music is everywhere. For people like me, it's my therapy, and it's how I heal to help other people heal. It's my one thing that I've always been good at, and I don't know. I always learn at it.
Okay.
It's always been in my life. It's been there when no one else has. It's never failed me. It's always inspired me to do something. It's always made me cry or made me happy or made me angry.
Okay.
It's
So
just,
it keeps you connected to yourself, I guess.
yeah.
Okay.
It's my therapy. It's my connection to myself.
Okay. Good answer. All right. So then, if you have one, what is your least favorite thing about being a musician?
My least favorite thing about being a musician specifically would be the producer engineer role. And in it would be, and my wife would agree, listening to the same fucking shit for like days and like, is that not me? Does the snare drum sound like shit? It doesn't. That's not the issue. But it's that listening. It's like, is this done yet? Like, she was so tired of hearing the hollows. But I'm like, do you realize how much shit is in the hollows? Where I have to go like, that piano in this one spot is not that loud, and so I got to go back because I've already mixed it in the car and it sounded fine, but it doesn't. So there was all of that. I love recording and I love being creative and I love using the studio as a tool to make sounds because I love Pink Floyd and stuff like that. So I love using it as its own instrument.
Yes.
Like The Wall, Sergeant Pepper, stuff like that. I really love it. But the least favorite part is just doing overdubs and listening to everybody else's shit 5,000 times in a row.
I know that I'm gonna guess that Rob from Anger Overdose, especially right now, is like, yes, that's exactly, because I think that is a producer's life, definitely. So okay, so that makes sense to me too, because it's the least musical part of being a musician for you. So yeah, okay, I gotcha.
Sure is.
Okay, so, and I think maybe we've touched on it, but if you could only listen to one album for the rest of your life, I know, what would it be and why?
All right, so I'm terribly like ADHD, but I do that with music too, where I will get 20 seconds into a song and then I'll have my fix of it, and then so I have to hit the next one.
Okay.
And I do that, and I don't know why my brain's working like that now, but favorite album, I don't just have one. I listen to so many different styles of music, honestly, that I have something that I love out of everything, but I have to pick an all-time favorite.
Well, no, it doesn't even have to be your all-time favorite. Just if you had only one that you could listen to.
All right.
Would it be Grace? Would it be Chris Cornell? Would it be something we haven't talked about?
I like a lot of stuff.
This question's hard for everyone, Aubrey.
Dude, it so is. You know what? It's gonna be I can always listen to that never gets old for me. Son of a bitch. Oh, does everyone freeze on this one?
A couple people have given me
Jesus.
answers so quickly it made my
They're
head
lying.
spin, but most
They're
people,
fucking lying.
like Ambrose from Anger Overdose looked like he wanted to just throw something at me when I asked this question. He was like, "Really, you're going to make me pick?" So it more people have struggled with it than not.
Okay.
I will say that.
I don't feel
You're not
bad
alone.
then. All right.
Here we go. He's got it.
All right. Soundgarden's Down on the Upside.
Okay, so tell me why. It sounded
It
so
was
Backstreet Boys. Tell me why.
no, it was I don't know. Right coming into age in the music, they had just released Down on the Upside when it came out. What I think like '96 ish.
Right. Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, it was a good year. So I don't know. I'd loved everything about it. I had heard Pretty News. I'd loved the guitar work. Matt Cameron's drumming is phenomenal on every song. They had started experimenting with sounds like Tight and Tighter. Not Welcome to the Machine, but it was something along those lines. And
Okay.
it was just super like kind of out there, but it was still Soundgarden. They experimented a little more. Chris Cornell's vocals were just, that was when I was first like really starting into a band and like paying attention to like, oh, these are what these people can do. And like, oh, so Chris Cornell can do that high thing that no one else can do besides like Chip from Heart. Got it.
Yep.
And it was one of those, and it was that soulful vocal and really the soulful vocals. In his lyrics. I just loved everything about it. It had everything I needed as songwriting, you know. But yeah.
See, you did
Jeff Buckley's Grace saved my life. But Down on the Upside, that's an album I can put on every time and listen to.
Okay. Good answer. Good answer. See, everyone thinks they're not going to be able to do it, and then everybody does it. Everybody does it.
It'll be like 2 in the morning, and I'm gonna wake up, and I'm gonna shoot you a message.
I was gonna say you're gonna message me. I changed my mind. We should do this like the ending of the movie Clue, where there are like 4 different endings. You know, so like we'll just release 4 different versions of this episode, and people will be like, oh, you know, yeah, Aubrey's pick was, you know, the Soundgarden album. No, it was Grace by Jeff Buckley. No, it was
the Karate Kid soundtrack.
Right, exactly. It was the sonic stylings of Tiny Tim or whatever. But okay, Aubrey, the time has come. Freaky Things is on tenterhooks right now. We have the last question.
Okay.
This is the big one.
All right.
Okay.
All right. Okay.
Your toilet paper roll.
Ooh, yeah.
Does the toilet paper come down from over the top, or do you pull it out from under the bottom, and why?
Without going and looking at mine now, which way did my wife recently politely tell me, don't fucking do that, that's the incorrect way, and then showed me a diagram on how it was supposed to be done? There's a diagram, because it doesn't matter.
The patent is over the top. So okay, is that she's okay. Dom, I'm sorry, Dom from Jam Steak is one of the only people. There are a few now since who have gone the other way with it. But okay, so it's for you though. It's not a passionate subject. You just go with whatever. Okay, so you know what I'm passionate about.
What I'm passionate about is sitting down and making sure there's still shit on that toilet paper roll. I don't care which way it's taken from. I just need to wipe my bum. Not a matter of importance.
I'm going to assume when you say that there's shit on that toilet paper roll, you mean that the toilet paper roll is not empty before you commit yourself. So I got you.
I'm a wordsmith, all right?
He's a lyricist, folks. He's a lyricist. The next album is going to be about toilet paper. Now we know
I'm just happy to have toilet paper. It doesn't matter how it hangs, man.
Okay, so there you go. So if pressed, you will say over the top, but you don't have a deep-held belief either way.
No deep-held belief.
Aubrey,
I do have a deep-held belief, though, on whether or not you take your shopping cart back, when you're done with it.
That is automatic. You must. You must. You must. It is a good person test. You have to do it. You have to. I'm gonna weigh in on that one. I have not weighed in on the toilet paper debate, but that one I'm gonna weigh in on. You have to take your damn grocery cart back. So, Aubrey, my friend, thank you for this, because you there's nothing about it I don't like. You're a really good dude. You're doing really important stuff with your album. You guys make really good music,
Thanks,
and
man.
I know that you are newer to the indie music community. I know that, you know, a lot of the folks watching and who will be watching this have already kind of brought you into the fold. I'm hoping
Yeah,
that this solidifies and expands on that, because you
this
should have a lot of
networking.
attention. You should have a lot of success. You should have a lot of people listening to you guys. You really should.
This networking thing is so new to us after being in bands for, you know, what, like 25 years, whatever. You know, we're used to handing people flyers, you know, face to face. We print
Right.
them out at the Kinkos.
Right.
No, now there's all this other stuff, which is really a full-time job by
It
itself. But
really
I
is.
appreciate so much everyone bringing us in to the family, and you're doing such good work here, showcasing everyone. Your attention to detail to everybody, it's really going to take this place, take it far. So
Well,
I hope you
thank
get what you're looking
thank
for out of all
thank
of this.
what I'm
So,
looking for is, to me, the show will be a success if it means that more and more people hear all of you. That's what
yeah,
I'm looking for. So, and on that, you know, just thank you for sharing the stories. I know this is not
yeah.
an easy conversation. I know there's a lot of stuff you've said tonight that you told me you really hadn't gone into anywhere else, and so I feel
This
honored that
is
you brought that here.
this is the
Um,
first time I've told the stories.
So
So
thank you.
no
Really,
way.
everybody, guys, seriously, Ghosts, Spotify, find them everywhere.
Check it out.
Stream Wormwood Project. You
We're
know, they have
everywhere.
really cool merch. That is a band I have my eye on. I gotta get a shirt. I will probably message you later, but
Message me
I
later.
just
See, got one here. You can't
there it
see
is.
it,
There it is. No,
but
no,
it's
I noticed it from when you sat down. But really, thank you,
we'll hook
Aubrey,
you
for
up.
sharing this. Please say hi to Brandon
Yeah,
and Yiko and Anton, and you know, sorry that they couldn't be here, but maybe, you know, the next EP that comes out, you guys all
that would
come
be
back.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
we'd love it.
great. So thank you guys, and thank you for, you know,
Thank
tuning
you.
into another Vox and Guest, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Take care. Thank you.